goats love dicks.
Hi everybody, and welcome to episode 19 of the Great Linear Song of Ice and Fire reread, which is back after its Game of Thrones hiatus. We are covering chapters today from March the 20th, 299 to March the 28th, which is squarely in Clash of Kings. My name's Bina 007, I'm your host, and I'm joined by a motley crew of vassals today, starting off with Matt.
VarleyOnTheForums, stuffing my face with bacon.
Which is how I always picture you, Varley. Noah.
Hi guys, Pops88 on the forums, Noah in real life.
Who I notice even has an Arsenal player in his Skype avatar just to annoy me. We are joined by Small Paul, aka Awesome Pauls.
Hey, this is SerDinnerRoll on the forums, Paul in real life.
We're joined by Jeff.
Hi, this is Jeff14 on the forums.
We're also joined by Hannah.
Hi, a very groggy Hannah, Shadowbaby on the forums.
Hannah, happy anniversary. Good to see you're having a good time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we've got a new podcast today, Czar Alexi.
Hello, this is Czar Alexi on the forums.
Welcome to Vox. So as it's your first time on Vassals of Kingsgrave, I think I'm right in saying, do you want to just let us know sort of how you got into the books, whether you've done a reread before, how you found the podcast, all that good stuff?
So I watched the first 3 seasons of the show first, and I really enjoyed them, and I wanted to see something more, so I go and checked out the books from the library, and I read them all pretty quickly, but I have not done a reread yet. I'm just following this reread, and I just read Dunk and Egg, so I was super excited about that. But I also, I found VOK on YouTube. By just kind of looking at videos, kind of getting bored, waiting for the Winds of Winter come out, and then I found it on podcasts on iTunes.
Yeah, which
Nice.
I guess is pretty common. So welcome on. And who is your favourite character in the books, or least favourite character? I don't know.
Probably Arya. Just even though everyone seems to think she's becoming a psychopath, I still think just her tomboyness and just she's always so awesome.
There is still goodness in her. She can still be saved like Darth Vader. So you and Noah, I think, are the Arya fans. And what's your least favourite character?
Well, I think the Cersei chapters in A Feast for Crow were my least favorite, just because I felt like I wanted her plans to go wrong so badly, but they weren't yet. But then finally they did in the end, so it was satisfying. But in the beginning, that was my least favorite. So Cersei then.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Okay, so welcome, and I guess we'll get into you're doing John 1 today. Jeff, I know you've been on the podcast before, but have you ever told everyone how you got into the books and VOK and best and least favourite character and all that stuff?
I don't think so. Somehow, I always just, slide it under the radar. I think it's because I did random things and not really a Song of Ice and Fire topics. So just let me go.
Yeah, go for it. So how did you get into the books?
So, somehow, and this is really sad, I was really cut off from society during, college. I didn't actually have a television for the first couple of years, so I didn't know the
How
show
did you
was
live?
just running around and doing stupid shit, like college you do. But, so I actually found the books on Amazon, and I just randomly started reading them. And this was, during Christmas or Thanksgiving, and I was, reading them, and then my cousin's like, oh, I think there's a show about that, and I was like, oh, okay, whatever. So I was already arrogant when my cousin told me about the show, and I was able to read all 5 of the books, and this was between season 1 and season 2. So I hadn't seen the show, so I read all 5, then I binge-watched season 1, loved it, and then started season 2. And by loved it, I mean still snarky critiques of the show, but still. So I somehow am still technically
Is there any other way?
Yeah. So somehow I'm actually a book reader first, even though I started reading the books after season 1 came out.
Remember when we only had to complain about Raws? That was good times.
Yeah.
Okay, so who are your best and least favourite characters from the books?
So, my favorite character is John, which I know is shocking for a lot of people on this forum. And then least favorite is, sorry Bina, I hate Jamie with a passion. And then also, I hate Cersei.
Be gone! No, on VOC we obviously appreciate all views, although some views are more valid than others. Continue.
Some are just misinformed.
I can't even. Just carry on.
Oh,
I mean,
is there any other question?
I do. Well, so basically, it's just Jamie is your worst character. Okay, fair enough.
No, Jaime and Cersei. The problem is, I admit that Jaime is extremely interesting. I just can't get over the fact that he threw Bran out the window, and a lot of people just give him a free pass for that.
And fucks
Yeah.
his sister.
Yeah,
Well,
Jeff, are you saying
Just
you
a side
don't like
note.
incest?
yeah, I don't like incest. And then
What the hell?
the biggest problem I have with Cersei is like she's just so unempathetic because this, generally speaking, like, and this might be controversial. I don't really feel bad for Cersei about the walk of shame just because I know if it was Marjorie, Cersei would be the first one encouraging Marjorie to have to do that and being excited that Marjorie was doing that. So I just don't feel bad for Cersei.
I can understand your position because I think she's at that worst point in a sense, and I think we're yet to see her. I guess in the next couple of books it'll be really interesting to see how George takes her, like whether he makes this a real wake-up call of self-realization and she becomes much more empathetic, or whether she just goes completely sort of power-hungry, revengeful, and insane. So I think you're right. Like, you can have very different views on her at this point because we haven't really seen what's going to happen going forward. Okay, so basically the reread is, as usual, going to have spoilers for all the published works in A Song of Ice and Fire and any preview chapters in T-Well, but it won't hopefully spoil the show, because so far I've managed to remain spoiler-free, which is some kind of miracle. March 20th to March 28th, 299, so we're getting into Clash of Kings. The last episode of the reread ended on Bran 2, so we're jumping forward 4 chapters in 3 days to Bran 3. Note also that at the same time as this harvest feast is happening in Winterfell, not only is Arya starving, but Dany has just reached Vase Tolero and is sending out her 3 blood riders. So that's kind of where we are linearly. Can't even say it. So, Bran 3, Bran's nearly 9 years old, and I think it's awesome balls.
All right. The chapter starts with Bran overcompensating for losing his legs by riding a horse into the feast hall. As he enters, he hears the men around him cheering for Stark, but he knows it isn't for him, but for the harvest and his older brother. He reaches the dais where he sits with Sir Roderick, Beth Castle, and Rickon, who has gone full crazy kid, and bites anyone who tries to cut his hair. Bran then gives a convincing speech for an 8-year-old, which gives him props from both Sir Roderick and Maester Luwin. As is tradition, George gives us some great listings of the food present. It turns out that Wyman Manderley is a real party dog, as he has provided most of the food and has brought entertainment in the forms of musicians and a singer.
What a guy.
Other members, the best guy. Other members on the dais include Sad Lady Hornwood, the rowdy Umber uncles, Clay Serwyn, and much to Bran's chagrin, the Walders. The feasting goes on with Winterfell looking happy for possibly the last time in a long while. However, Bran is less than happy as he feels stifled and helpless. Despite Sir Roderick complimenting him as being a fit lord, Bran thinks that he'd much rather have been a knight. It is then that Bran realizes how much he misses his family as they are all gone except for Rickon. He even mourns at the fact that many of the familiar household guard are no longer with them, many having been slain at the Red Keep. Just then, 2 guests join them who are announced as Lady Mira and Jojen of House Reed. Despite the blatant racism of the Walters for the Frog Eaters and Mudmen, Sir Roderick and Bran welcome both into the hall. Mira reveals that they have been sent by their father, Howland, to renew their oath to House Stark. They then proceed to pledge their loyalty and swear by earth and fire, by bronze and iron, and by ice and fire. Bran is at a loss for words, but decides it's just proper to simply accept their oath and welcome them in. As they join, Jojen is anxious to see the direwolves, so Bran promises they will see them later. The feast continues, and Mors Umber decides to go footloose and picks a serving girl as his partner. We see that Lord Wyman, despite appearances, is quite graceful when he dances with Beth Castle, which implies the fat lord is not all he seems. Even Sir Roderick offers a dance to Lady Hornwood, who politely declines. However, seeing this dancing reminds Bran of how lame he is, and he has Hodor take him back to his room while avoiding his horny Wait a minute. Oh, sorry. He has Hodor take him back to his room while avoiding his horny master of horse getting busy with a servant girl. Bran falls asleep in his room to dream of knights like Sir Arthur Dane, but soon the dreams become wolf dreams and he becomes Summer. Both Shaggy and Summer hear the rattling of the gate and bound toward the sound to discover the Reed siblings have entered the Godswood. Mira cautions her brother about touching them, but Jojen confidently says that this is not the day he dies. But when he touches Summer, Bran loses consciousness and feels as though he is falling.
Nicely done.
It's like the last time we see Winterfell in party mode. I love it. It's a really nice, warm chapter, I think. Get to meet the Reeds and everyone.
I just kind of like it's all the good Northern Lords. It's the Umbers who are all fun. It's
everyone left behind, isn't it, by Rob?
Yeah, basically. It's Place Irwin, it's Wyman, it's all the good guys, and poor Lady Hornwood.
Oh, she should have had a dance with someone and got a new husband.
When she was flirting with Roderick previously, or was it previously, or
Yeah.
one of these chapters she's flirting with Sir Roderick. I'm like, aww.
Are we all agreed that Roderick definitely should have married her?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
The
good.
Castles of Hornwood would have been great.
What was his reason not to? He was too old to father children or something like that.
Yeah, but he already has a daughter. He could have just.
Well, he's only a knight as well. He's not really from a noble house, maybe.
I guess.
Much more of a neutral perspective compared to giving.
Maybe he's just shy.
Or that, yeah.
But he has such great facial hair.
We get a little mention of the whole Sir Arthur Dane versus Ned thing. The events that we still don't really know about to this day. The fact that Howland probably just shivved Arthur in the back.
No, he magicked him. Come on.
Yeah.
He made a tree just grow out of him.
What are all your theories about Howland Reed? I mean, how many of you think we're going to meet him at some point in the books?
Yeah, definitely.
Or have we already?
Yeah, I'm holding out for High Sparrow, yeah.
Are we even going to get another book?
Oh my god.
Just a heartbreaker today.
Leave this call.
But so what? Someone just very quickly explained to me the reasoning for him being the High Septon. High Sparrow.
Sounds like Hannah's the only one who actually gives credence to it.
Yeah, I know. I heard it and I thought, oh, that would be really neat. I don't know, how valid it is, but I thought, man, really playing the long game, that'd be kind of fun, but,
But why would a Northern Lord be a Sparrow of the Seven? I don't get that. That doesn't.
How would he be an expert in the faith?
Deep
devoted to the. Yeah, I guess because magic.
One of the reasons people cite for him being the High Sparrow is because the High Sparrow is a kind of small man, like a Crannogman would be.
Yeah, it's the physical description.
And the fact that he's tearing down House Lannister somewhat, but I doubt Howland's the kind of guy who would use religious fanaticism to do anything.
It seems pretty thin if it's just on the fact that he's short.
Basically.
But there you go, Shaggy
For all
Dog.
that reasoning,
if you're listening,
Tyrion.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone under 5 foot.
He's short and he's around the same age. I think the theory probably got into somebody's head around the time of Septon Maribald and the whole thing with the Hound.
Oh.
Preston Jacobs.
Yeah, that could very well be.
Okay, Shaggy Dog, if you're listening, it's a future Shaggy cast waiting to happen. What's the deal with the High Sparrow? When you first met Mira and Jojen, did you like them? Did you think they were going to become such major characters for Bran?
Well, I'd seen the show and...
Of course, you knew.
Yeah, so I was a little... But they were introduced a lot earlier in the books and the show. I think they waited till season 3 to have them show up, and it was after they had left Winterfell.
Yeah, it was weird. They just bumped into him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they didn't really introduce them very well either. I remember watching it and going, "Who the hell are these kids again?"
And you didn't get the fucking awesome speech. I mean, I swear it by bronze and ice and fire and everything. And
right, you get
that justice.
That's some beautiful fantasy writing just there.
The series title, mic drop, swear by ice and fire.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, this was when Bran's storyline was still interesting, so you kind of paid attention.
Ouch.
Well, and they don't meet him in Winterfell on the show. They're already gone out of there. They meet him in the forest. It's really stupid.
Which makes it worse because
in
the show it would have just been so cool to just see this harvest feast, to see a happy Winterfell once again. But no, the show has to be dark and dreary. And...
Well, it's quite important because by the time the group leave Winterfell to go north, they've already been through so much together. You know, they've lived through Theon and the Bastard of Bolton, and you know they're already fast friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Bran already has a
Well,
crush
and
on Mira.
it's that contrast too because the other Walders Freys are there, Big Walder and Little Walder, and so he's got 4 kids around his age, and the contrast of the attitude of the Freys and then the attitude of the Reeds. That
Big
dynamic they build is really important.
Big Walder's not that bad.
No, Little Walder's a prick.
Yeah, Little Walder's just asshole.
Did anyone think that Jojen was kind of a dick too?
I
Yeah,
just
but
thought this was a
actually-
trippy guy.
I really like Mira; she's awesome. But yeah, I can see how Jojen, you know, probably doesn't have many friends.
Yeah, when Mira gets introduced and we see her description, I just thought like, oh, she's an older Arya, basically, with like a spear.
Yeah. I didn't picture her like the TV character. Best.
No.
I still don't. I mean, I remember when I first read the character of Mira Reed, really liking her, because here was this like totally capable, no bullshit, quite tomboyish, but not like Arya, who so clearly is the plucky, witty heroine, but just like a really cool female character, but like Asha, and yeah, no, I really liked her, but I did find Jojen really annoying. He was just a bit smug with all that sort of, this is not the day I die. Like, he just came across a bit like a school swat that you just wanted to flush his head down a little bit. But maybe that's just me.
And Jojen's smug comment made Bran so pissed off that he used Summer to bite off his wrist.
Is that why Bran ate Jojen?
Exactly. Just turn that fucker into Jojen paste. Now, I mean, like, obviously later, as we get to know him, then his story becomes really tragic because it's, you know, he knows he's destined not to survive. But yeah, at the start, I was just like, ugh.
And one thing I want to point,
gotta save the world.
What I want to kind of point out is that when these two get introduced, it's only Mira who gets the title of lady, and then Jojen is just addressed as Jojen. Does that mean that maybe Howland knows that his son is going to his death, and so has basically just said, Mira is the Lady of Greywater Watch at this point?
Maybe it's like Dorne, you know, women inherit if they're older.
Well, maybe it's just because it like Howland's still Lord of Greywater Watch, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But if
there's no prince, right?
But Bran is still Lord. Yeah. How would people address Bran at this point?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, they still.
They call him Lil B.
Didn't someone say that in the next chapter?
Lil B.
Sorry, Noah.
Oh, I'm squirmy.
I think Bran is technically a prince of Winterfell now that Robb's declared himself king.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Did they know that yet? Yeah.
Yeah, they've heard of this by now, I think.
The king in the north. Okay.
But I think at that point, even though he's a prince, technically the Lord of Winterfell is still a higher title, just because you have the seats of Winterfell right now. So he's a prince of the north, but the Lord of Winterfell technically is a higher position as one of the great lords.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not part of the Seven Kingdoms anymore if the north is its own kingdom. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like
but we're just saying like the actual landed title is more valuable than just the title of prince.
Kind of like how Stannis is pissed about not having
Storm's End?
Yeah.
Stannis. Oh, if only I had the titles to fuck. Oh, that'd be such a great day.
Yeah. I don't think Stannis curses though.
Not anymore.
He might.
One thing I noticed about this chapter, I don't know if I noticed it on my first reread, or on my first read through, but it starts off where he's got this really mature confidence in the situation, and you kind of, he's grown up a lot. And then he starts looking around the hall, and he starts talking about, like Osha moving around the tables, and somebody put their hand up her skirt, and somebody else's hand was down a woman's bodice, but she didn't seem to mind, and it brings you back into, like, he's just a little kid, you know?
He's a man grown.
he's almost a man grown, but,
almost, yes.
He has this, like, weight on his shoulders because of everything that's happened, and you think, he's really coping well, and then the more you read, you kind of just see, like, a little bit later, he says, he could have cried then, but, like, didn't,
And that's a major
And
theme of this book, isn't it? Like, you've got Robb and Bran and Arya, so all these kids having to grow up and just still be kids, and that's the heartbreaking thing.
Yeah.
And actually,
Robb doesn't do much growing up.
Well, they have fewer opportunities to be kids, and they're thrust more into these roles that, as you say, force them to grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, it does show you that negative side of Winterfell. Like, we're saying, yeah, these guys are just awesome, and it's the days of summer. But I think George R. R. Martin's really slippery because he writes it in this way that makes it sound like I want to be at that party. But then he does give you a lot of hinting that if you're just some sort of serving wench, you are just going to get some lord basically molesting you. That's just part of the cause.
Or if you're Osha, you just bust his head over with a jug and everyone laughs.
Anything else from anyone else on this chapter?
So he's choosing who to give what food to who, and he gives all the nice food to people he likes, and then he gives beetroots and turnips to the Freys.
Yeah. It's a childlike.
Exactly. I completely get it.
You can't play my Nintendo.
And does anyone else think the words they swear by are some just like a mixture of First Men and Children of the Forest Oath? Like how they're swearing by, what was it exactly? Earth and water, bronze and iron, and ice and fire. Earth and water sounds like it would be something you'd say for the Children of the Forest. Bronze and iron sounds like something the First Men would swear by. And then ice and fire just sounds like it overall.
Badass.
Or trying to name drop the name of the series.
Or George R. R. Martin throwing it in there so we could all go home going, he said it. We can go home now.
In case you forgot.
It's awesome.
Yeah. It's a little Captain Planet, like Earth, wind. Our powers combined.
Hodor is the heart, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Earth, fire, Hodor.
I think that's a bumper.
Yeah. Anything else in this chapter?
Alan Reed's still defending the neck, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Tyrion.
Presumably.
They're basically just fucking with him at this point. They're peeing in his water and shooting darts at his men.
Who?
The Iron Man.
Yeah.
Oh, they're already there. Oh, okay.
Well,
not yet.
Oh no, of course not yet. Theon's.
Not yet, but
yeah.
Once they do get there, I'm pretty sure Howland's giving them grief for it.
Yeah, that's why I don't know if he can be the High Sparrow, because surely he's there leading the sort of guerrilla attack on Moat Cailin.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he does such a shitty job that it's possible that he's not there.
Well, how many men does he have against the Iron Fleet? I mean, what can he really do?
But isn't the neck essentially swamp, and the fact that the Ironborn have to make a land assault, and it's the whole House of Greywater, so probably at least 200 people.
Yeah,
if
but
they have guerrilla tactics.
But they took it from the north, and that's where it's weak. So it's different.
yeah, they came down from the north.
Yeah.
They didn't go through the neck to get there.
Right. I just thought the idea was still that they would at least have the advantage. They weren't actually holding the neck. They were just, in the sense they weren't holding Moat Cailin, they were just holding the neck. So they should have been able to pester them and kill the majority of the men before they actually got to Moat Cailin.
I don't know. You can't really judge an army when you can't see them, really.
We have no idea how many Cranagan men there are.
Yeah, for all we know, Victarion lost a lot of men getting to Moat Cailin, because all we really hear from him is he left a guy in charge and left, and then when the Voltons show up at Moat Cailin, most of the Ironborn are dead from the poisoning and the darts.
And none of them want to be there, and they're just having a really shitty time.
Maybe they're just oh my god, Victarion's so badass, why we shouldn't really attack yet. And then when he left.
I mean, Victarion's such a smart character, right?
Oh yeah, he's the best.
He has a firearm.
I still remember the whole. Were you the one quizzing Vikram about who's smarter than Victarion?
I don't recall, but that sounds like the kind of conversation me and Vic might have had. Because he loves Victarion, right? And
it was a 20-minute conversation of you just throwing out names and being incredulous when he's no, Victarion's smarter than that guy.
Yeah, that does sound like me.
Victarion's gonna be an idiot, because he's even stupid to his own advice. Because he constantly says, "Don't trust Euron," and what's he gonna do in the end? He's gonna use Euron's poisoned gift, and it's gonna fuck him up. Just a prediction.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think Victarion gets a bad name, personally.
Yeah, he's totally justified in killing his wife.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, not in all actions. Not in all actions, clearly. There is no black and white, just grey.
Yeah, there's a pretty dark shade of grey.
In fairness, I'm willing to see where Victarion goes next. He's
the prince that was promised. It's got to get better before it gets worse.
Exactly.
I'm entertained by his storyline, if nothing else.
Look, he's a great warrior, and he's loyal to his brothers.
Is he that great? He lost to Stannis.
Yeah, but lots of people lose to Stannis.
Yeah, true.
Not Tyrion.
Including Stannis.
Yeah, that's true.
True, but this is when Stannis actually had, the crown backing him.
Yeah, I suppose. But, I mean, Stannis, all he did before was, hold on to Storm's End. I don't understand, how he got to be this, greatest military commander in the Seven Kingdoms kind of title.
But is anyone actually saying that?
I'm not saying he's the greatest, commander, but he's better than Victarion, apparently.
Yeah. All they different.
Didn't also
land versus
Stannis
sea.
defeat Victarion at sea?
True.
Yeah.
But then again, it's but then they're on their, what's your better environment in which to fight? Stannis is really, I think, an army commander, whereas Victarion's a sea commander, so fair dues.
Right.
Yeah, and Stannis beat him on the sea.
I think Stannis is better all round, whereas Victarion has a specialty.
I'm pretty sure, Victarion is good at, battling more, hand-to-hand, close combat fighting, but when it comes to tactics, I'm pretty sure that Stannis has him beat with just planning ahead, and Victarion's just okay, thrust forward, let's go into battle.
We should totally just have a contest. Sorry, we should totally have a contest on the forums. How was it Jed who ran the sort of head-to-head character contest? We should have one of those, but just for military commanders, and then people vote in the early rounds and get to the final, and you have to argue for why your person's the best military commander.
Oh, Tywin Lannister's getting to the top of that.
Yeah, I'd agree, Tywin.
No way. Okay, so this has to happen. Jed, whoever, make this happen.
I know Bina just wants Jaime to win, but...
No, he's not a military. He's more, I would say,
he's an idiot.
Yeah, Jaime's a shit commander.
Yeah, Jaime's shit.
Yeah, Bina, fuck Jaime.
Guys are so trollish. Okay, I'm going to bring this to a close and move to the next chapter because the Jaime hates too much to bear. Okay, so where are we going next? After that Bran chapter, we then move to Jon 1, which happens on the same day. So this is where the linear reread throws up weird shit. So basically, this happens on the same day in real time, but actually it's 15 chapters before, or 200 pages in my copy of the book. So in other words, if George R. R. Martin had done this book in a linear way, we wouldn't have had a Jon chapter till a third of the way through the book, which kind of, in my perspective, might not have been such a bad thing, but never mind. Okay.
Hate is real.
I hate Jon. Okay, not as bad as Tanya Silence, but yeah, at this point he's just very entitled and whiny. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like Sansa.
Yeah, but Sansa gets better. Okay.
So much salt.
Exactly. I think this is Jeff 14 doing the summary.
Yeah. I'm just gonna be lazy and read the little one that's here, and then I'm gonna go back and kind of expand the points that I remembered. So here we go. John, excuse me.
I said, go on then.
Oh, okay. Where'd it go? Oh, okay. Sorry. Jon goes to find Sam, who's gathering maps before the ranging, and he's clearly loath to go, although someone needs to send ravens back to Aemon. Going back later, but still, there's an interesting point here. We learn the old bear is taking 200 men, of which 2/3 are rangers, and Corin Halfhand is bringing another 100 from the Shadow Tower, excuse me. Sam and Jon see new recruits from Goldtown being trained in the yard, and then go to see the old bear. Also during this time, they talk about the comet, or the Mormont's torch, which is now visible in the day, which is kind of strange. And then the old bear talks about Robb and his new kingship, and then discusses with Jon about how Aemon used to be king and how that could affect Jon, and how Jon is bound to be more restless and jealous now that his brother is a king. Several interesting points that are brought up through this book, this chapter. Just the descriptions of the library and Sam talking about the books and how amazing and how much you can learn from it, and it's just really cool, like, meta experience. One, how right Sam is, but also being nerds, just listening to Sam gush about books and how awesome it is, and then just thinking of how back in this time period, books had to be transcribed word for word, and some of these books are thousands of years, and just really interesting. Additionally, we get the talk of talking to Doyle, I believe that's his name, and the whole iron, steel, and copper, comparing Stannis, Robert, and Renly to the various metals. I believe it was Robert's the true steel, who can bend and is strong when needs to be. Stannis is the iron, he's strong, but also brittle, and he'll break before he bends. And then Renly is copper, who's flashy and interesting to look at, but is weak whenever you try to do something with it. Just to talk about the comet, it's kind of interesting how it stays in the sky the whole day. And then when they're talking about Aemon and how he was king, you get the whole tie-in to the Hedge Knight. And then finally, what I think was interesting was when, the old bear, talking to Jon, and you get the whole story about just the description of mirroring Robert and Jon of how his life is going to be, that it's a king. And it's almost kind of interesting because it kind of happens for Robert, but at the same time, it's kind of a mirror of the two lives, and it might be interesting to see that actually what happens to Rob is going to happen to Jon, and it's just the weak theory of how Jon might marry a beautiful princess and his words. And I believe there is one point where bards will be singing about the greatness of Rob, and it's ironic because now bards are actually singing about the downfall of Rob. So it's almost like it's the opposite of what's happening that Jorah was predicting is going to happen to each of the characters. So maybe after death, Jon will be better.
Less whiny, I hope.
Yeah.
Given that he's just been killed, probably not. Czar Alexi, you know science, so you can explain to us the whole comet thing and how it goes on and on and on for months and months and months, and people can see it in the day and whatnot.
Yeah, so this is not 100% accurate, probably, but...
Well, good, because it's VOK. Like, if it was 100% accurate, it wouldn't be appropriate.
Also, Alexi, how do you know science?
I took an astronomy class, and I looked this up on Wikipedia right before you started. So.
He's qualified, guys. This checks out.
Wikipedia.
But, okay, so comets are like chunks of rock, ice, and gas, and they mostly spend their time on the outside of the solar system, either in the Oort cloud, which is like Yonkers out, or in the Kuiper belt, which is like just where Pluto is, just beyond Neptune. And they have super elliptical orbits, so usually they're way out and then they come really close to the sun. And as they come into the sun, all their ice and some of the dust flies off, and that's where you get the huge tail of the comet. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see it because they're pretty small. Like if you think about, if you see Venus in the sky, even though it's a planet, it's the size of Earth, it's still a tiny dot. The reason you can see the comet is you don't actually see like where the center is, where the nucleus of rock is. You see the huge tail that lights up the sky. And so as the comet goes for its like closest approach to the sun, more and more gas and dust get ejected, and you see the tail, and that's what we can see. So the Hale-Bopp, which was a comet in the 90s, had like a rotational period of 4,000 years, and you could see it for 18 months. It was one of the brightest comets in that's been recorded.
Okay, so
It
it's
also was a
totally...
UFO that brought people to heaven.
Oh yeah, that too.
So it's totally plausible how it's written in the book that you could have different people seeing this over a period of 3 months or whatever. That's totally fine.
Yeah, because it's not in the Earth's atmosphere. It's like it's millions and millions of miles away. It's just that its tail is so big that you can see it.
Makes sense.
But it might not be red though. I don't know. Mostly I think they're more blue and gray.
Was that how it was when like the Hale-Bopp comet was around? Does anyone remember that?
You could see it, but I don't remember it like filling up the sky like this one does.
Yeah. I was a little kid like when it came through. The only thing I remember about it was that Heaven's Gate cult thing.
I do remember it foretold.
Black Nikes.
Yeah, purple clouds. Could you guys see it in England?
I'm guessing you could see it everywhere because of the Earth's rotation.
Okay, thank you for that. Back to the chapter. When the crow says king, he means Jon, no? Or not?
Dang! Probably.
Was that
amazing. It's your number.
Oh, if there's any point in which you think Jon might be king in the future, I think it's this chapter, because it just outlines all the other Targaryen kings and talks about like this and his son, and you just see that there's just like 2 more sons, and there'll be Jon, and then the crows saying king. So I really think Jon will be king from this one. I didn't think that originally, but after reading this chapter.
Yeah. Does no one not think he's going to be king, at least for an intermediate period? Maybe not the final king, but a king?
Well, he's dead.
Yeah, but like...
Until he gets revived, I don't think he's going to be anything.
Oh, I really hope he doesn't get revived.
He is going to get revived, isn't he?
I don't really see him being a king. I see him being more of just like the tragic kind of hero kind of character who just sacrifices everything. I don't see him being like a ruler of any kind.
Well, that's how he sees himself, isn't it? Like, every little bit about Jon is written where there's these subtle and not so subtle sometimes hints being dropped about his parentage, about his destiny, and he's totally deaf to it, you know? It's interesting how Martin has all these factors that play around him, like when he starts warging into Ghost and he doesn't get right away like what's really happening, and he's so distracted by his station in life and circumstance that he doesn't see the bigger picture at all, if that makes sense. But we see it, like it's always looming over him. And
well, it's later in this book, he has that dream with the half hand when he's ranging, and they sort of, he's like, oh, it's just some silly dreams about being a wolf, and they're like, oh, they explain it to him, don't they?
Yeah.
And that's how he figures it out. So
yeah, like,
he really is completely oblivious to it.
Yeah, like just even right at the end of this chapter, and Sam's like, you know, if you tell me you're not bothered by all this stuff with your brother, you know, you're a liar. And what do you know, and he's like, well, what am I going to do about it? Because I'm just a bastard. It always comes down to that for Jon. Like, he has a lot of lack of self-worth instilled in him from that. But I feel like it more comes from, like, him and Kat than Ned or any of his brothers, like, treating him differently. Well, and Sansa.
I'm not even sure if it's, like, specifically Kat. It just feels it's so endemic in the society around them. Like, even, you know, the way Sansa and Arya sometimes refer to him, like, Arya loves him as brother despite the fact that she's not really meant to. Like, it's just so in society and in his very name. Like, almost like Theon is given more sort of honour at table than Jon is. Like, Theon's invited as a princely lord to that dinner that the royal family turn up to at the start, whereas Jon
he is
isn't.
a prince.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's kind of, it must weigh on you. I think it's really convincingly written. And as much as people like me might sort of, you know, take the piss out of Jon for being quite mopey and emo, I mean, like, ultimately, why wouldn't you be? I mean, that's really realistic. If you've been grown up to believe you're a second-class citizen and that nothing you can do can ever change that, and your only hope is to go and basically be on the wall, live away from your family, never have a family of your own, and somehow sort of subconsciously atone for the stain on your birth. I mean, that's pretty... He has every reason to feel self-pity, I think.
Yeah, but you know what? So does Tyrion, and I think it's one of the first chapters when he goes to the wall and he's like, oh no, it's at Winterfell when he says, you know, wear it as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
As opposed
The
to...
difference, though, is Tyrion actually still has the Lannister name and has all the money.
Exactly. That's a big difference. Tyrion has a future.
Yeah, but Jon's got a magic sword, a magic wolf, and he's probably quite good looking.
But he doesn't know that, right? He doesn't, you know, he's not aware of that. Like, Tyrion, as kind of stunted and ugly as, you know, we're told he is. I mean, that's the one thing the casting of the show gets wrong, because Tyrion in the show is really good looking. But, like, in the books, he still gets all the pussy, right? Because he's got money and power. Whereas Jon may be a good-looking young lad.
He pays for it.
Yeah, but still, nonetheless, he's still getting laid. Whereas Jon, like, we never see young, sort of, you know, sort of serving wenches throwing themselves at Jon because he's really hot. I mean, he just is this, like, lonesome emo guy.
Well, it's because there's no women at the wall, and the one
but
woman
there's women
he
at
runs
Winterfell,
into...
right? I mean, like, the other boys are probably getting laid. Certainly Theon is, but Jon isn't. Like, he doesn't have young, sort of, serving maids.
But then that's down to him and his...
Right.
The word escapes me, but how he views women and his attitude towards them.
Like, he doesn't want to knock someone up, basically.
Yeah, exactly, and make another bastard.
His thing is, I don't know who my mom is, so this could be my mom, or, you know.
Yeah, but not if she's, like, 16 and
was a
comely,
whore.
though. I don't know. I just sort of feel like, as much as people like me and Tanya might give him a hard time, half in jest, I think it's totally understandable and it's well written. Like, he has all the reason in the world to be how he is.
It is, because he's a teenager too, so it's definitely realistic. It's just not a practical emotion. I think that's what Tyrion's trying to tell him is like, forget the society thing. I am a lord and I have money and power, but just in my family dynamic, I'm the second class citizen. I'm the, little monster.
But it
of my
doesn't do any
family,
good,
and
does it, really? I mean, I think it's like all that, like, sometimes you read things, what would you tell your younger self if you could go back in time?
yeah.
But that advice never works because when you're in it, like, it might look self-involved to us, and that's, I think, when people criticize Jon, that's what they're saying, oh, he's so self-involved. But when you're in it, it's very hard to hear people outside of that. And God bless Tyrion for really trying. But
Right.
I just think it's hard, I think we should, as much as I cut Sansa slack, I should cut Jon slack, right? I guess is all I'm saying.
Well, considering like how self-involved Sansa is as well, like, oh, my life is so hard. I can't marry the beautiful prince. Oh, my life is so hard. My sister's a bastard, and I'm gonna lie. Yada yada yada, and then like, but at the same token, it's kind of a different sect. It also like reinforces like how shitty Ned must feel for like treating his sister's son like this, and like that's why it just weighs on him so heavily that his sister's son that he loves is like being treated like this.
I never really want to defend Kat, but it did just occur to me, like, I think when I first read this is like, all right, well, and being married and, you go up through ups and downs and you have to make a decision about, or am I going to accept this or let it be over or whatever. And she's chosen to love Ned. And because to me, reading about how much she despises Jon is like, well, Jon didn't fuck anybody. Like, he didn't ask to be born. So even if he was Ned's bastard, like, how's that Jon's fault, you bitch?
Exactly.
But
And
I
that's,
guess psychologically, it makes sense that she'd have to accept that it kind of is Jon's fault in order to love Ned and like move forward with her own family.
I don't know.
Well, Jon just serves as the reminder of like Ned's infidelity, right? Not like not like him as a person she hates. It's just like the constant reminder that like he's around. Like why wasn't he just like left down south and
Yeah,
And
like
see, that's why I don't like
one of
Kat is because it's so narcissistic. It's always her talking about, this is my reminder that other people can see, and it's in my house, like a stain on your rug. It's like, get over it. But I can see how, in order to be able to be engaged in love and romance with Ned, she'd kind of have to waylay all that hate on
What kind of stains do you have on your rug?
Oh, that's an old rug.
I mean, for all the crap we do give Catelyn, I'm not gonna say I hate her character. I'm gonna say, I kind of understand her character, where she comes from, because she even says in chapters she knows she's a bad person for treating Jon so poorly, even though in this society it's actually not that odd for bastards to be treated that bad. Because if you think about it, like, technically the Starks are the odd ones out for bringing the bastard into their house. Because, like, even Roose Bolton just kind of kept his bastards at the wayside. All the other bastards are just kind of, if they were on a peasant, they are, because we don't even know that Jon's mom was a highborn. All we know is that he showed up. So for all we know, Jon could also be a half peasant. And it's just not something you did back in this like time period where they're at, where you just keep your family as your family, but the bastards, you can acknowledge them, but it's probably best if they just stay away at all costs, because there's still that social stigma around them. And I think actually Catelyn she comes to peace with him being in the house, but that definitely doesn't mean she's gonna like it.
Yeah, I guess so.
I just disagree to the point that, like, yes, but I think once you become the acknowledged bastard, it's almost, like, assumed that it's most likely a highborn. Like, the bastard's mother was highborn, so it's an elevated status, kind of like the great bastards, and then the bastards that Robert acknowledges. It's all known that essentially, even that they do have a higher status than normal bastards, and they are a unique case, just because of who their fathers are.
Isn't it only Edric Storm that's like Robert's bastard? Even though his
Edric
fathered
is
a
the
ton
only...
of them.
Yeah, from a highborn.
She was highborn from Stannis' wedding night. Oh boy.
Yeah, that was a dick move, Bob.
Well, Robert's not exactly famous for thinking of others first.
It's like, let me test out this bed for you. Works.
Don't worry, bro. I got you.
I got this. Exactly.
Going back to the whole
Kept it warm for you, bro.
Speaking of stains.
Oh.
Stanus.
Oh yeah.
the thing with Ned though is like if he didn't want to tell her the secret, like you're saying, your dad, it's not my secret to tell. If you don't want to say that, the whole thing with acknowledging a bastard, it's that lord's prerogative, and yeah, it's a little misogynistic in this society, but he could have just said, listen, this is the situation and you're going to get on board with it. And, you'll come to learn this about me. I have a good reason. It should be enough, especially for as in love that she is with him. Like in that scene where they're in Winterfell the last night, she's clearly in love with him now, so she should be able to get over it and move on with him.
Yeah, I agree. Anyways, let's try and get this back to the wall in the chapter because I'm aware of time and whatnot. As good as all this was, I also want to get Wargasm in on the whole cat debate. Anything on the news that we get at the wall? Anything about the old bear who clearly thinks there is a good chance he'll get killed because he wants to make sure there's a way of getting the news back to the wall? Anything on Master Aemon turning down the kingship? Counterfactual history? What would have happened if he had taken up the kingship? Anything on that, or should we move on to the next chapter? Because we're all talked out one cat.
No Summerhall, right?
No Summerhall, exactly. It's major.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't think Aemon would have been a very effective king.
Really?
Yeah, because all we've known of him, basically, from... he was even sent to the Citadel earlier on, and I'm guaranteeing that he was the one sent there, instead of maybe, Aegon, because he had a penchant for learning and a penchant for service, and...
Well, he was a third son as well.
He's a third son as well, and...
Third son of a fourth.
Oh, no, I was going to say, in the Hedge Knight, don't they say, the other son was so disappointing, they sent him to the Citadel?
Yeah, because he's very bookish, and the only other kind of bookish king we know of is Aerys the First.
Yeah.
And it was basically Bloodraven ruling the entire time when he was around. So it suffice to say, Aemon, great guy, is a very good maester. I don't think he would have been a good king.
I would just disagree to the point that our standards for king in this universe are so low that just by being a good person, he automatically is in the top 25% of the kings.
That's fair.
Yeah, but
I do get your point, though.
I'd also say that Aemon would be more on par with possibly Aenys with just keeping people happy than actually... I mean, sure, he might pass forward some sort of laws and stuff that may be beneficial, but overall, if it came to a war, I don't think he would know what to do.
Right, but by the same token, let's just say Aemon was king, he could just made Aegon his hand, and essentially Aegon could have just ruled through Aemon, and everything would be the same. It's just that Aegon probably wouldn't do Summerhall if he wasn't the king.
Agree.
Yeah, but Aegon was also crazy and very old when he did it.
Right, but if Aemon was there, I think he could have talked Aegon out of it.
If an ant were pots and pans, this would be a massive kitchen.
And on that note, we move forward to the next chapter, I think. Because counterfactual history in a fantasy series is already ridiculousness, right?
It's fun, though.
It is fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so unless anyone's got anything burning to say about John 1, I'll move forward to the next chapter.
No, go for it.
Okay, so after John 1, we move forward 5 chapters to Theon 1, a new point of view character. Woohoo! Which takes place on the 25th of March 299. In other words, it has taken him 5 weeks to journey from Robb to Pyke. So, who's doing this one? I think it is Varley the Scoundrel. Off you go, Val.
Boy. We get a lot of Theon's background, Theon being a kind of latent dick, I would call it. Not on purpose, just kind of general dickishness.
Following in his uncle's footsteps.
Yep. So Theon's returning to Pyke. He's on the bow of a ship at one point, and he's looking for home, which is kind of sad, when we learn what happens to him. We get a description of Pyke, and it seems absurd because the kitchen is on a different island from the Great Keep, and yeah, we get some great George descriptions where it's the device it bore, the golden kraken of House Greyjoy, arms writhing and reaching against the black field. The banner streamed from an iron mast, shivering and twisting as the wind gusted, like a bird struggling to take flight. I like that one. Theon thinks the comet is his because he's a fucking idiot. And
in fairness,
he describes...
so does like almost everybody else. He's not the only self-important, self-involved person who thinks the comet is like awesome stuff for him.
Right, and his uncle thinks that the comet is the firebrand that the Iron Islanders used to bring when conquering, and Theon's like, yeah, but it's also mine. But we'll learn about that later. Let's see. So he's talking to the captain's daughter, because for whatever reason the captain brought his daughter. He describes the islands as cold and windy and damp, a miserable place in truth, but my father once told me that hard places breed hard men and hard men rule the world. He makes a conscious effort to like take the captain's daughter down below decks while the captain's watching, and he found it amusing watching the man struggle to swallow his outrage while performing his courtesies to the High Lord. So that's him being a dick. He describes himself as a hostage and not a ward. The Iron Islands just breed dickish men. Men spend their nights drinking ale and arguing over whose lot is worse. We get a little Iron Island like backstory about salt wives and rock wives and salt wives. Now how bad it's gotten on the Iron Islands, how they don't reeve anymore for whatever reason. Theon teaches this girl a new trick. She can now give blowjobs.
Yay!
All right.
The worst thing about that whole scene is he doesn't even necessarily want the blowjob. He just wants to shut her up. So that
right. She's like, at least it silenced her like stupid babble or something.
I know,
like
it's just
like,
so
horrifically.
He didn't even want the blowjob.
He's just like, Jesus,
the blowjob was just like a happy
better than
side
listening
effect.
to you is, getting a BJ.
Oh.
So House Greyjoy's words, I think this is the first time we learn it, that we do not snow.
Expertly butchered there.
Yeah, excellent. And that Theon's father is the Lord Reaper, which is kind of cool. Theon thinks he must not go far from the sea again, and then he does, and he gets fucked. So fuck him. Theon then tells the captain's daughter that she's probably having his kid, and she should be honored because
Heir to the Iron Islands.
Yep, he's a dick. And then I think we get the first mention of Euron. Theon says he searched for his uncle's ship, and he did not see the terrible red ship. So that's something that was placed early in the books, I guess. We get a Victorian mention as well a little later in Euron, and he says that old men are stupid and cautious by nature, but he'll be bold. And we get a picture of a priest, the robes of the Drowned God, which will later turn out to be Arion. No one really acknowledges Theon, and he's kind of pissed about that. He's expecting an honor guard, and he's expecting like all these good things, and he gets blessed by his uncle, and oh Jesus, this chapter really does go on and on.
And you're just making it sound so exciting.
Oh, it's brutal.
Having fun there.
Yeah, he bitches about even Jon Snow was given more honor than he was. He talks about whoring with his buddy Patrick, and how the Mallisters have been enemies of Greyjoys forever, but they're like, whatever, it's been like 300 years since like the sea bell rang or whatever. And Patrick's father killed Theon's brother. Keep on talking about Robert's crushing the Greyjoy rebellion. He meets his father. His father's a fucking dick, even
Amen.
more so. He learns about the iron price and how, Ned Stark dressed him like a girl because, that's what he did. We learn that Theon has a little letter from Robb saying that if you start reaving against the Lannisters, you can be king. And the guy's like, no, I'll pay the iron price for that. And Theon's like, what the fuck do you mean by that? And he's like, oh, okay. We're gonna find the sweeter plum of Winterfell. And that's it. We get a lot of like Iron Island history, but that's it.
It's really weird, I find, as a chapter. It's almost like bipolar insofar as Theon at once is portrayed to be absolutely horrific in how he treats that girl, and just generally all his attitudes just suck. And yet, the way he's just sort of not greeted at all, just put in a moth-eaten old room and, you know,
in the bloody keep,
and just gets basically crapped upon by his family is actually quite heartbreaking. I mean, I think it's kind of sad, you know? He doesn't feel that he's given the right respect as a hostage in Winterfell, and he comes home, and no one gives a shit at best, and at worst is mocking him for his girlish baubles and for being an idiot and just a stooge. So I was heartbroken for him in spite of myself, in a way.
Yeah, twice I think he says, like, I'm heir to Pyke, and his uncle and his father says, we shall see.
Yeah, I mean, it's really horrific.
What respect should a hostage get?
Yeah, good point.
What, in Winterfell or when he comes home?
No, in Winterfell.
Yeah, not much. I mean, I think he's been treated incredibly well, because effectively he's been treated as a ward. So really, he's got nothing to complain about. Like I said before, he's treated better, I feel, than Jon. But I think that when he comes home, I think it's not too much to ask that your family would be happy to see you, and maybe not that you just become immediately the heir, but he lives in a patriarchal society. Why wouldn't he be the heir? So it's like his entire like vision of himself, which at the start of the chapter is this really cocky princely lord, like I can fuck any wench I meet because that's my right, I'm very entitled. And by the end of it, the balloon has been burst. I mean, he's been utterly felled by his family. It's just horrific.
It's really tragic because, I mean, think about it. You're like 10 years old. You get ripped away from your family. Okay, you have to go with these people now. And even though they treat you right, they're not your family. So just think about the mundane hardships of growing up and being a kid and how your family is what gets you through that if you're in a good family, you know, and you cling to that relationship with them, and especially being away from them, you can build them up to be anything you want in your mind to cope with anything that's going wrong in your life. And then he gets there and they're just like, yeah, we give zero fucks.
Yeah, it's a rude awakening.
It's horrible. I mean,
did none of you
really
think
went
it was
into the
maybe a
father's
test?
heart.
Noah first, then Matt.
That's a what?
Does no one think that maybe it was a test? You know, Balon testing him to see what he was like. You know, to see how to. You know, I mean, if he'd have walked in there dressed differently and with a bit more of a presence, he might have commanded some more respect instead of going in there and expecting it. You know.
Yeah, the thing with Asha, that is really fucked up. It's like, well, you set him up. You know what I mean? It's
right.
That's definitely very messed up. I don't know if for Balon it's as much of a test, or she just kind of got that and did that on her own, or if like he sent her to do that. But either way, it's like, you know, you give a heroin addict heroin and then you're like, oh, well, you took a hit, so you're messed up. It's like, well, you kind of instigated the situation.
I also sort of feel that Balon, like, gives Balon too much credit. And at the end of the day, if his son has become soft and like a Stark and wears baubles and doesn't understand and appreciate the ways of the Greyjoys, that's because you, Balon, started a war and lost it. It's a bit like blaming Jon. Jon didn't ask to be fucked, and Theon didn't ask to become a hostage. You went to war and lost. So if anyone's to blame for Theon coming back all sort of dolled up with baubles and thinking the wrong thing, that's you. That's on you. It's not on him. He was just a kid.
Well, you could do a lot worse, you know? What a psycho are you that you're not like, oh, good, the Starks took care of my child.
Exactly.
What's wrong with you?
Yet another one in the glittering gallery of parenthood that is Song of Ice and Fire, honestly.
So, yeah. So, I mean, even Theon says, like, oh, Robb, like, regards me as an older brother. And, you know, Balon's like, no, you don't talk about brothers here. Like, I started a war that killed both of your brothers. So, you know, you don't get to say that. It's like, what? Shut up.
Have any of you ever seen Shameless, like UK or American?
Yep.
He's totally Frank Gallagher. Balon Greyjoy is totally Frank Gallagher.
Yes.
He's just that classic, like, manipulator, abusive.
No one was crying over him when he got off. I'm interested, Alexi. So how much of the show do you watch before you read the book? So do you think that because you knew maybe where Theon was going to get to like betraying Robb, or maybe like how harsh it was going to be for him when he really got like made into rape. Do you think that influenced how you read these first chapters, or not really? I don't know.
Well, I did watch the first 3 seasons before I started reading, so I would see some of the later stuff that happened to Theon. Yeah, definitely. Well, this chapter, it's a little bit more involved in the show a lot, so I was just kind of just soaking in all the information, and I didn't even realize that in my first reread that his uncle is introduced so early. I was just like, it just shows how George is building so much stuff early to be kind of come later.
Oh yeah.
I want to pose
But which
a question.
uncle? Because
Go ahead.
no, I was going to say which uncle, because I didn't even realize that Victorian and Euron were even mentioned.
Oh yeah, both of them.
Obviously,
I guess,
we
yeah.
meet Danbury.
Don't we meet Victor? No, maybe not this one. The next one.
Yeah, sorry.
What was that?
Sorry, Alexi, carry on.
Anyway, my question is, so what if Robb and Theon had like a little bit of better of a plan, not that they would have known, and come to the Iron Islands, and instead of being like, we'll give you a crown, just say, like, you are the king of the Iron Islands, would you want to be allies? And kind of, instead of impose, because that's the real, why he really, why it angers Theon's father so much, is not like, it's that he's giving them a crown and Theon's father takes crowns. So what would have happened if he just said, you are the king of the Iron Islands, do you want to raid Lannisport? Like, we can have some allies and be alliance here. And like, would that have made it so he didn't raid the north?
I kind of feel that he would have taken it badly either way. Like, even if Robert said, "I acknowledge you as you are the king of the Iron Islands," he would have been like, "Who are you to acknowledge it? I just am. Fuck off." Yeah. I just maybe feel he was at that point, but I don't know what the rest of you think.
I mean, I think if he worded it more like he signed it to, like he didn't even say, "I acknowledge you." He just addressed him as King Balon of the Iron Islands. And was just like, I just wish to inform you that the gold and riches of the Westerlands are currently unguarded. Just FYI, thought you'd like to know. LOL. Lol. And I think if he was more just like, he made it clear that Balon didn't owe him anything, and that he didn't owe Balon anything, it would have gone over a lot better, but I don't know. Balon's a cock, so what the hell?
Yeah, Balon has such enmity to the Starks that, like, he totally passes up, like, Lannisport, and instead he gets, fucking, Glover and, like, was it Greywater Watch or whatever,
No,
towers are there.
Moat Cailin.
And Deepwood.
Moat Cailin, yeah.
Deepwood Mountains.
Yeah, instead of Lannisport? What the fuck?
I don't think this is Robb's fault, though. Like, Robb's assuming that Theon knows his own father well enough, and
But why would you assume that? He hasn't seen his dad in years.
That is his fault.
I think it is Robb's fault.
You knew
because
your
it's
dad when you were 8.
Everyone tells Robb, or maybe not everyone, I think Kat tells Robb, don't send Theon on his own. That's really stupid. The reason you have a hostage is you keep them there to force whoever it is to do some stuff. And I think this is on Robb. But it's not necessarily on Robb because Robb is young, so he's going to make mistakes. But I think this is Robb's mistake.
You think that if Robb took Theon, still had Theon, and sent a raven to the Iron Islands, said we have your son, do this, and do that, it would go even better. I think Balon would be just like, okay, fine, fuck him, kill him, who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Theon wouldn't be taking Winterfell. Balon would have just stuck to the coasts.
The thing with Balon is he is pissed at Theon, because you've got all this jewels and you look like a woman, and did you pay the iron price for that? It would not have mattered either way. He's such an idiot psychopath, because they could have handed him a crown. Well, that would have been not good enough, because we don't get gifts. We pay the iron price for things. And that is really stupid, because he gives up Lannisport, and that is something that in their culture they could hold and actually use. And instead he goes, yeah, well, fuck that, we're going to take Winterfell. And it's just out of spite almost, Yeah. I wonder if that idea was even in his head before Theon showed up.
Balon didn't want Winterfell. Balon knew Winterfell was indefensible. Theon was the one that thought Winterfell was the jewel and wanted Winterfell. Balon was content of just going on the shoreland and raiding and taking the cities that he thought he could defend.
Yeah, and doing what Asha basically does, right? I mean, they're of a mind.
Yeah.
I just feel
it's like
Rob...
Lord of the Flies over there.
I just feel Rob... Yeah, it really is. It really is. I do feel for Theon at the end of this chapter.
Which of the Greyjoy brothers do you think is like the least terrible?
Ugh.
The ones that are dead or Victorian Euron?
Like the older, like Balon, Euron, Victorian.
Balon's the worst.
No, he's not. Euron is
No,
the worst.
Euron is.
Euron.
But that's
Euron's
heavily
the worst.
influenced by the latest T-WoW preview chapter. But I mean, I would say Victorian probably is the least bad.
I
In
think
all honesty,
Aaron- Yeah,
as much as I
yeah.
give Victorian shit, I think he's the least bad.
Well,
Well, he's been the
Damper-
most steady, right?
Yeah.
Because
Damper
Damper used to
cool.
be a party boy, right? And then he found
Yeah.
religion.
Chill.
And he's,
Yeah, but
now he's
I think-
insufferable with his religion. And
I think I would have liked Aaron better if he had just stuck to his carefree, because I feel like a friend of mine like made the comparison of how the older Greyjoy generation is kind of like the younger Greyjoy generation, and how Victorian and Balon are similar to Roderick and Marlon because they're both just kind of similar in how they deal with stuff. They're both old way. Aaron is like Theon because they were both party animals, and Asha and Euron are like because they're the odd one out. They are the one who is kind of, oh, you're the different one. But like, I would say that, yeah, Aaron is like annoying with his constant like religious fanaticism.
right, he's like
But
someone that got
he
like
doesn't-
sober.
Yeah, but he doesn't hurt anyone with that. He just says,
Yeah.
"Oh, let's the god does this." But like Victorian kills his wife because Euron raped her. Aaron is just an annoying preacher, basically.
Which reminds me, actually, there's a constant theme in this books of the sins of the fathers or the sins of others being visited on victims. So, you know, Cat blaming Jon, Balon blaming Theon, Victorian kind of blaming and punishing his wife for being raped. Like, it just feels like the system of justice in this world is so out of whack that it's always the victims that are blamed for the crime.
And Aaron kind of owns up to his mistakes as being a party boy by going, you know what, I'm gonna go celibate. I'm just gonna carry around my log and go swimming every now and again and just scream about how our god is a drowned fish person.
Does anyone have anything left on the Theon chapter, or shall we?
Yeah, I did actually. So does anyone reckon, because Balon is so, I mean, he doesn't quite say it, but he obviously, you know, doesn't want to go and attack the Lannisters. You know, he just kind of says, well, we should get Winterfell while it's undefended. Do you think Tywin has already contacted him and made some sort of little alliance, or if it even
Wow.
happened at all?
I never even
He's
thought of
just
that,
afraid
but
of
that's a good
Tywin.
idea.
Well, because I mean, maybe in his twisted mind, you know, he burned the Lannister fleet, so he's like one up on Tywin already, and he wants his revenge on the Starks. I don't know.
I guess I would. Does Tywin even need to have an alliance, or like does he just need to send like a letter like, remember how the Starks fucked you over, and like just like, oh, kind of like what we were suggesting with Rob to do, like maybe Tywin just said, oh, by the way, I suspect in the coming months that the North is going to be undefended. Remember how they fucked
Yeah.
you.
Well,
Yeah.
and there's the fact that Taiwan,
Taiwan?
Lannister.
Chinese
Tywin.
Taipei, excuse me.
Ooh, delicious.
Tywin is like a recorded ruthless commander. He fucked up the Rains and Tarbex, while Robb Stark is at this point kind of is looked on as kind of like an untested battle commander. And so you're either going to be attacking, sure, the Westerlands are rich with gold, but you're going to be attacking a man renowned for being ruthless and just utterly destroying his enemies who don't bend the knee.
True,
Or
but
you're
at,
going
at the same time, he knows he's warring in Harrenhal. He's as much away from home as Robb Stark is.
Does he know he's stuck in Harrenhal? Because I'm not too sure that Balon has been sending out ravens, like, cordially, like, questioning, oh, are your lands undefended currently? Like, oh, dear Mate Tyrell, how are you? How
He
are the
hasn't been
Shield
watching the
Islands? Have they been keeping up with their defenses? Nothing suspicious here. Wink, wink.
I would love
Good
the
day,
okay to
sir.
do an audiobook. Just the accent's brilliant.
But no, I think the only thing I wouldn't say Tywin had contacted Balon at all is just because the Lannisters are so narcissistic. You know, like I think that would be an afterthought at best for them. Like, you know, who gives a shit about the Iron Islands? Those people don't have it together enough to be a threat to us, and we're not worried about them joining Robb for the same reason. And even if Tywin had contacted Balon, it'd be the same. It would just turn his eyes toward the Westerlands. You know, okay, well, when we're done with the Starks, we'll go and take care of you too. Like, you're not going to hand us anything. Anytime you make any contact with these people, it does not go well.
I think to bolster Paul's point, like, yeah, he is a little worried about the Lannisters, and then also it's probably in his back of the mind if it doesn't go well, like maybe you can kind of Robb won't go as far as like Tywin, but Tywin's definitely not gonna like let that slide, and he's gonna come back with a vengeance and absolutely fuck you over and burn the Iron Islands to the ground for just a slight, compared to Robb that would just like be afraid and want to get his lands back, and then probably like have to do some internal work to like show that he's still in control. And ironically, that's kind of true of when Robb lost the North. Support for him waned, but if like Tywin had a small setback, or had something like that, it would be viewed as a small setback, and Tywin would still have control over his men.
I think Theon shows how naive he is by saying like he thinks they'll take Casterly Rock, which is like from you just hear, you know.
Yeah, that'll be his seat.
Yeah, like they're not taking the rock, like that's like
it's never been done before, but we're gonna do it now.
Even the Targaryens were afraid of it.
Yeah. Exactly. And as you know, when you've got the book The Worlds of Ice and Fire and the brilliant artwork on Casterly Rock, that thing is just it's insane.
It's pretty awesome.
Question when I see that painting, I'm like, is Harrenhal really bigger than that? Because that's a pretty fucking big castle.
And a dragon took it out, which makes you really scared for dragons.
And it's like, why would you even want, if you're Jaime or Cersei, why would you even want King's Landing if you could have Casterly Rock?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're a conceited asshole.
And all the gold.
Basically, yep.
I mean, it just
well, why pick one when you can have both?
I would pick
the
one
Lannister
because...
way.
I feel much the same way with handbags.
So random.
How I feel about food.
It's not the Chanel or the Hermes, it's why can I not have both?
Oh boy.
Oh well, now thanks to Brexit, there'll be neither. Oh, poor me. No one cares for my pain. Sorry, anything else on Theon 1?
Regrets.
Oh, I love how when we get their house words, we do not sow. The first thing I thought was, God, why do you want to like proudly wave this flag of laziness and ineptitude?
It's like we're counting on you guys to do stuff, and then we'll take it from you.
The flag of laziness and ineptitude.
We do not sew. So, do you like knit, or
Yeah.
how do you get your clothes?
Womp womp.
Yeah, I also kind of read as we do not sow. They don't raise pigs.
Well, I read it as we do not snow. So
No one's coming out of this one looking brilliant. So, after the Theon 1 chapter, we jump forward one day, but 6 chapters to Tyrion 4, which takes place on March 26th, 299. And I believe that is Pops with the summary.
Yes.
I can't wait for this. I'm really looking forward to Pops doing this.
Oh, Jesus Christ, why? This is not my best work, guys.
Oh, man.
That's alright, I'll make it funny after. It'll just be nice and long and boring.
Perfect.
Still better than Varley's, though. So, Tyrion 4. Tyrion breaks his fast at dawn with Pycelle and orders him to send a raven to Prince Doran. Whilst the doddering old man tends to the ravens, Tyrion swipes a bottle from the potion shelf. He notes that the shelves contain sweet sleep, basilisk venom, and tears of Lys, amongst other things. I just thought I'd throw that in there because I'm sure some of that is what Oberyn uses on the mountain.
Nah, Oberyn brings his own stuff, man.
Oh, he's got his own shit. Okay, cool. When the Maester returns, Tyrion urges him to keep this letter secret from the council and his sweet sister. He swiftly leaves to continue his scheming and thinks to himself, 1. As they cross the Bailey, Bronn informs Tyrion that 30 he meets up with Bronn, by the way. And Bronn informs Tyrion that 30 supplicants await him today, including Lady Tanda's page with an invitation to supper. Tyrion tells Bronn to send his regrets. There is also a money lender from Braavos wanting repayment of a loan. Tyrion orders him directed to Littlefinger, who will find a way to put him off. Another supplicant is a minor lordling from the Trident who wants recompense for destruction done to his land. Seeing the value of a compliant river lord, Tyrion promises to make time for him tomorrow and orders him given good quarters, a meal, and new boots, courtesy of King Joffrey. There are also many food merchants who want protection from the hungry mobs who recently roasted a baker in his own oven for overcharging. Tyrion suggests gold cloaks, but Bronn notes that there were gold cloaks in the mob. Bronn also reports that Sir Alistair Thorne of the Night's Watch has arrived with a rotting hand. Tyrion recalls his distaste for the man and orders him to be put in a dirty cell and left to wait. After Bronn departs, Tyrion encounters Cersei, looking very hot on her horse. She is surrounded by a gaggle of her lackeys going to inspect the city's defences in light of Renly marching from Highgarden. Tyrion is not as concerned, having received the same report from Varys. He makes a point of the snail's pace Renly is moving at, as well as the other enemies he could face in the field. Not pleased with Tyrion's answer, Cersei childishly tells him to order Tywin to bring the Lannister army to King's Landing. She asks what he is doing to free Jaime, who is worth 100 of Tyrion apparently. Tyrion quips that they do not have 100 of him to trade to Catelyn Stark. Angered, Cersei declares him worse than useless and leaves. In truth, Tyrion fears Stannis twice as much as Renly. Renly is beloved but inexperienced in war, while Stannis is cold, hard, and inexorable. The spies he has sent to Dragonstone are ominously silent, though Lysine war galleys have been spotted, and Varys reports Selsail captains taking service with Dragonstone. When he returns to the Tower of the Hand, he is greeted by Pod, who informs him Littlefinger awaits. He finds him seated by the window, watching Joffrey gallantly killing hares with his new crossbow in the yard below. Observing Joffrey's poor aim, Littlefinger quips that the hares are winning and advises Pod to invest in pots, since the castle will soon be overrun with hares, and they will be eating potted hare for every meal. Tyrion dismisses Pod and offers Littlefinger refreshment. Littlefinger politely declines, noting that he has heard to drink with Tyrion is to risk being sent to the wall. Tyrion compliments Littlefinger on his clothing and notes his Valyrian steel dagger. There is mischief in Littlefinger's eyes when he responds that it is a trifle plain and offers it to Tyrion as a gift. Tyrion refuses, infuriated that Littlefinger knows why he mentioned the dagger and is mocking him because he thinks Tyrion can't touch him. 10 years ago, he's thinking to himself that 10 years ago, Jon Arryn gave him a minor position in customs where he soon tripled the revenue. Within 3 years, he was master of coin, and now the Crown's revenues are 10 times what they were. Crown's debts have also grown vast too, but Littlefinger is a master juggler and borrows so he can put the gold to work. He invests in wagons, shops, ships, blah, 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 all that good shit. At the same time, Littlefinger moved his own men into place. The King's Counter, the King's Scales, all 4 keepers of the King's Keys, and the officers managing the 3 mints are his, as well as 9 of every 10 among the harbour masters, tax farmers, customs agents, wool factors, toll collectors, pursers, and wine factors. All of them are mostly men of middling birth, lesser lordlings, or even foreigners, but far more capable than the highborns they replaced. No one questioned the appointments because Littlefinger is perceived as harmless, without soldiers' holdings or marriage prospects, yet Tyrion is unsure if he can touch or trust him. Tyrion asks how close Littlefinger was with the Tully children. Littlefinger tells his favourite lie that he took both of the Tully girls' maidenheads. He adds that he hopes to sway the more tractable Lysa by offering her Jon Arryn's true killer. Intrigued, Littlefinger asks who, but Tyrion only says that Lysa would have to understand he only gives gifts to his friends, meaning she must first ally with the Lannisters. Littlefinger points out that Lysa has her own woes, with such as the Vale Mountain clans, who are now more aggressive and better armed, thanks to Tyrion. Tyrion promises to use his influence to call off the clansmen. Littlefinger insists Lysa will never make war on Starks or Tullys, but Tyrion assures Lysa's power would be used to only oppose Renly or Stannis. In return, Tyrion would give her justice, peace, and name her son Warden of the East, and wed his niece Myrcella to little Robert Arryn. Littlefinger asks what Cersei thinks of the ploy, and he laughs and shrugs. Then Littlefinger asks what his reward will be, and Tyrion promises Harrenhal and supremacy over the Riverlands as their liege lord. Littlefinger's reaction amuses Tyrion. By birth, he holds not but a few rocks on the fingers, but Harrenhal is one of the realm's richest domains. Littlefinger is suspicious, especially considering that Janos Slynt also received Harrenhal for his good service. But Tyrion assures him he is more valuable than Slynt. And Littlefinger agrees, and as he departs, Tyrion thinks to himself too. Next, Tyrion heads back to the Tower of the Hand, where Varys is awaiting him in his chamber. Varys quips that Tyrion was cruel to taunt Pycelle with a secret, but Tyrion accuses Varys of the same thing and offers to tell him. Varys suggests his little birds may have already told him. Tyrion hopes to dissuade Dorne from joining another faction, even though Prince Doran's hatred for House Lannister is well known. Tyrion points out that much is obvious. Varys notes that Prince Doran is a sentimental man who still mourns his murdered sister. Tyrion reveals he has offered Doran a council seat in his sister's killer. Varys points out that Sir Gregor Clegane is known to have murdered Elia and is a Lannister bannerman, but Tyrion argues that Tywin will agree 50,000 Dornishmen are worth one rabid dog. When Varys wonders aloud what might happen if Doran demands the blood of the Lord who gave the command as well, Tyrion blames Robert Baratheon since it was his rebellion. Varys notes that Doran will want a token of good faith as well and asks who Tyrion will offer. Tyrion turns the question back on Varys, who declares it must be Tommen since Tyrion cannot offer Myrcella to Doran and Lysa both. Varys' uncanny knowledge leads Tyrion to quip that he cheats at guessing games. Varys calls Tommen a good boy, and Tyrion comments that he might even grow to be a good man if they can get him away from Cersei and Joffrey. Varys acts suspicious that Tyrion might mean to make Tommen king, but Tyrion insists Joffrey is king. Varys points out that there is a flaw in the scheme named Cersei. Jeez, I was so drunk when I wrote this. Who will never consent to part with both Tommen and Myrcella. Tyrion says what Cersei does not know will not hurt him. When Varys asks what will happen if she does learn of it, Tyrion declares that he would know the man who told her to be his certain enemy. When Varys giggles at that, Tyrion thinks to himself, 3.
Whew.
I have a question.
That was something. Oh.
I have a question. Why does Tyrion go to the effort of setting up this little Agatha Christie whodunit when isn't it obvious Pycella's going to be the Lannister snitch because he is a Lannister snitch? Like, we know
but you never know with Littlefinger.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels quite convoluted, is all I'm saying.
I don't know if he did this as sort of sussing out who he could trust.
That's exactly why he did it, right?
I don't know, because as Bina says, it's kind of fairly obvious. I think it's more, I don't know, seeing who he can plot with, perhaps. He's kind of testing the water with Littlefinger, sort of feeling him out a bit.
I always thought it was more about him seeing who's the stupid one.
Yeah.
You know, like who's going to be stupid enough to fall into this trap? Because he knows he can't trust any of them. But he might be able to use them if they're smart enough to keep their mouth shut and see where it's going, you know?
And it also, like, he wants to marry off Myrcella to one of, like, to these two options. So, like, he didn't make it up just to test the loyalty of Littlefinger and Pycelle. He wanted to get the Dorne in, or he wanted to get the Vale in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, because he knows a lot. He knows that Littlefinger and Varys and Pycelle are all playing the game. So I think he's, sussing out who plays it well, like what methods do they use, which of these marriages, like what will they say, you know, and what will their line of thinking be, because that gives you a better measure of the man, is their tactics and motivations.
And I agree, because we kind of see it when he talks with all of them, because when he talks with Varys tries to kind of dazzle him with his knowledge of what's going on and his knowledge of secret things. And Littlefinger uses his just kind of charm and just, oh, look how stupid the king is. Oh, we're buddies. And then Pycelle is just grovelly, yes, whatever you say. And it kind of turns out, oh, well, that's the obvious one.
You are the weakest link.
I mean, I can see why
Goodbye.
George does it narratively because, as you say, in a relatively short chapter, actually, there's so much information and a lot of character study, and we do get all these insights. I just found it interesting that Tyrion felt he needed to do it because I sort of thought, this is a guy who's been mixing with the nobles at court for a while. He should know all this. So it works great for us. I'm just not sure it's expedient for him. But whatevs. And then sorry.
Oh God, sorry.
No, you go.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say, has he really been mixing with them at court? Because I mean, what role has he had to play, if any, really in the city up until now? You know, 'cause Robert was the king the last time he was there.
I mean, maybe not a governmental role, but he would have been there for all the big state occasions and all the big, he's been at all the banquets and all the big tourneys and stuff. So he's seen them all operating, I feel, at this point.
And
Does he care, though, until now?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I think he's smart enough to know, like, he needs to analyze these people, see if they're up to anything before he can really converse with them, unless to make sure he doesn't really spill any beans that need not be spilled. But, yeah.
Yeah, it's like he's, when Robert was alive, he's just the little brother of the king's wife. He's got no authority, no real position in his family or their world. So he might have been watching them, but through a totally different tint of lens, because if I'm Tyrion up until now, I never thought I would actually have to play with them. So it's just kind of like you're watching TV
Yeah, I agree.
rather than participating.
Alexi, any thoughts, feelings on this chapter?
It's like, Tyrion is definitely so much smarter than Cersei in his planning. He's not the most cunning ever, but
low base.
He's just trying to.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, that's true. But but Cersei really fails to see what, especially in A Feast for Crows, what the people around her want and what's their motivations, as she has all her lackeys there. But Tyrion is really trying to figure out the motivations behind all the other council members and see who he can trust. And even Varys, who you seem to be like he's buddy-buddy with, he still doesn't completely trust, and he's still really wary of him.
Yeah.
Well, he uses Varys too much. I think that's a point. That's maybe... Does he make this point in this chapter, I think? He reflects how much information he does get from Varys.
Right. I think it was in the previous chapter where he says, sometimes I feel like you're my best friend or my worst enemy, and Varys is like, samesies.
I also want to point out just how early the Iron Bank of Bravos asking for their money back appears. That kind of surprised me a little bit on the reread, because obviously it's now becoming a major theme in the books, or major threat in the books. But yeah, they were asking for their money back in Clash of Kings days. So
Yeah, your bank is always pestering you about something or other.
Oh yes.
Well, and is it in this chapter or another chapter where Tyrion does acknowledge, like, not a good idea to be borrowing from these people? Or
Yeah, it's not in this chapter, but yeah, he at least sees that you shouldn't just go around pissing them off, put it that way.
We're writing checks we can't cash, folks.
Literally.
So now I kind of remember what I was trying to go for earlier. So they all could have potentially told Cersei, surely, if you actually think of it. Varys, in this chapter, Varys gives the same information about Renly to Cersei as to Tyrion. We know Littlefinger from the whole Ned thing speaks to Cersei.
That's another flaw in his plan, isn't it? All three could have snitched to Cersei, and then what would have?
Yeah. Even though they were all, like Cersei would say.
Untrustworthy, yeah.
Yeah, because. Yeah.
But again, I think he knows that going into it. The neat thing is, Pycelle probably fell into the trap because he didn't see it. Littlefinger and Varys probably knew what he was doing. That high-level paranoid thinking of when you sit down with somebody and have this kind of meeting. Well, why don't you just take it to the small council? Why are we doing this behind closed doors? Oh, he's probably got a motive. I better not say anything, even if I wanted to.
So, do you believe that Pycelle has lasted this long, basically just through arse-licking? Like, it isn't through native cunning?
He licks a bunch of ass.
He licks all the asses.
It's teaming up with the winning side constantly.
Yeah.
I think it's his harmlessness. I don't look at him like...
Or cultivated harmlessness, right? Cultivated.
Because he is such a ass licker. It's like...
It really is, like, because his only real talent now is just sending out the ravens. Well done, Pycelle.
And providing people poisons.
Not even that sometimes.
He's like, they want to keep him all around. He makes everyone else look really good by comparison.
Anything else on this chapter?
Yeah,
I mean, we do get huge quantities of info about just where everything is at this point, right?
Yeah, I didn't just ramble for the sake of it, guys.
I was gonna say, if you wrote it drunk, you should have probably read it drunk.
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
Finding all that
Come
stuff,
together.
I think a lot of it is copied and pasted from Tower of the Hand, where my brain just gave up.
Real quick, anybody think it's kind of cool how Littlefinger like returned a 10 times multiple?
A what?
What? Yeah.
A 10 times multiple? Eh?
Financial markets in joke, kind of like his value is that much.
Oh.
More than, yeah. Oh, ugh, that just,
Well, no, I don't.
yeah.
Saying that he was able to like take $1,000 and make it second.
Hello.
Wargasm.
Hey, Drew.
Hey.
Thank
Hey,
you.
how's it going?
I needed you about half an hour ago when there was some cat baiting going on, and I was like, oh, next week I'm
shit.
gonna have my boy Drew on, and he's gonna be like,
That's exactly when I woke up. So yeah, so my spider sense was tingling. You don't talk shit about my cat.
Somewhere in the world there's cat hate.
Exactly it.
almost everywhere in the world there's cat hate, right? We're on Tyrion 4, so basically he's just been like lining up Varys and Littlefinger and Pycelle to see and telling them who he's going to marry off Myrcella to in order to figure out.
Pimping of Myrcella.
Yes. Thoughts, views?
I don't know. I love this chapter, like or these chapters series where he's setting up his whole basically just trying to figure out where the rats are and everything. I think it's brilliant. I don't know. I don't have any. My brain's still starting. So yeah.
He's still warming up.
But yeah. Yep. I'm having some coffee. So
This is also the chapter where we get Littlefinger telling Tyrion that he deflowered Cat, which he believes, right? Like, he's not lying at this point.
I think he's told the lie so many times that he's started to believe it. And yeah, I mean, I know lots of people like that where, like they just lie all the time. How they keep track of him in the first place is one thing, but I think after a time, the memory changes in his head, and he actually thinks that he's racked up both Tullys.
I certainly hope all of those friends of yours that you just referenced who are sort of pathological liars are listening to this podcast.
No, they do not, and they would not think that they are anyway. So yeah.
Okay, Noah, on to you.
Yeah, I don't know if he's just deluded himself. I mean, into it. He's lived the life for too long. But I think he still does know deep down that it's he didn't deflower Cat.
Oh, okay. Because I think he doesn't know. I think he genuinely was in this sort of feverish state, like drugged up, and I think he was taken advantage of by a slightly deranged Lysa.
Yeah, but I mean, surely he would have bumped into Cat before he left. And
but they didn't
given
let
her
her
the
see
eyebrows and gotten a slap in the face or something. I don't know.
They didn't let her see him.
Yeah, he was kept away. But
Yeah.
I mean, in my mind, I would just I would hope I would have banged the hot one. So.
Alexi, any views on whether Littlefinger is lying or deluding himself, or just genuinely doesn't think he banged Cat?
Well, I think he does, because the only people who know that it was Lysa are the Tullys, and Lord Hoster Tully isn't like telling everyone that someone banged his daughter, so that's going to be kept pretty secret. So, like he probably still genuinely thinks that it is Lysa that banged him.
Oh, you mean that it's Cat, not Lysa?
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm excited now because Hannah has a crackpot theory about this. I feel we need like a crackpot theory jingle. I don't know what it is.
We need the drugged up Adam to do the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What the
Well
hell
done,
is
sir.
that?
No.
Okay, Hannah, over to you.
On Vicodin, it sounds great.
Okay, so, asking if Littlefinger's lines like asking, does a Mormont shit in the woods?
I get it.
But
I see what you did there.
But a really good friend of mine is a like crazy book reader, and she's read them like a million times, and we talk about this a lot, where Sansa is so not a friggin' Stark, and I've had this notion for a long time that she is not Ned's daughter. She's such the odd man out. She has the tully hair.
Way.
She I'm
So
not
does
saying
Robb,
it
though.
is. It's
Yeah, Rob does too.
Is it in the book? Well, and see, because here's the thing. It's the way they all get knocked down, kind of. Like, she loses her direwolf, and by all accounts, never had the wolf dreams, never had the connection with Lady, and it is kind of hard to tell because Lady dies so quickly. But just everything about her is so outside of the Stark realm. And then you have Littlefinger, who is genuinely convinced, one way or the other, that he had Catelyn at some point. And I can see a realm of possibility where you've got this creepy dude coming on to you, Ned's maybe off handling some shit with Balon, and who shows up drunk at your door? It's Littlefinger wanting some,
Okay, so
booty call, and Catelyn goes, yeah, you know what? That bastard cheated on me, so I've been in my cups. Yeah, let's go for a ride.
So to
And-
kill
But
the
there's,
theory right now,
but there's a whole. She doesn't identify as a Stark yet, right? She identifies as being like her mother, a highborn lady. But honestly, like as the books progress, if you look how she refers to herself when she's in times of trouble and she needs to gather strength, it's always with reference to her Starkness. And I think this is a slow burn character development, and by the end, she's going to be about as Stark as a Stark can be. So.
but also when Cat gets to King's Landing, she even makes a point to say like, "Oh, I haven't seen him since he left River Run." Like,
Well,
there's no way.
Hey, I've been blackout drunk before, and there's a lot of things I don't remember. I don't think it is really true or anything. I don't think George would bother, but it's just it's an interesting idea that popped into my head in a couple of places.
So what's your
it's
theory?
where
that...
if like I was in the world, like I could buy into that lie from Peter. I could see it, you know.
So you think that
And-
Lysa was knocked up by Littlefinger and then gave the baby to Cat to pass off as her?
No. I'm saying I think there is a possibility that their paths may or may not have crossed at some point, and maybe he did have Cat, and maybe that's Sansa's the product of that. It's again crackpot theory. I didn't say realistic theory. It was just I could see it. I could see it in a kind of Days of Our Lives way.
It's an R plus L equals D theory.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly. It's just a fun notion that struck me. I'm not like clinging to it like canon or anything. It's it was just
Well, no, it's good to try out these ideas.
yeah,
that
popped into my head, and it's just kind of fun to have those different musings. I think I love all the crackpot theories. It's why we do this stuff.
I also think it's actually, especially if you're thinking back to early days of Clash of Kings, it's a totally valid reaction to have to Sansa's character, because she really does stick out. So me saying, oh, that's completely not true, because she starts to really identify as a Stark later. We don't know that at this point, so... And she looks very Tully as well. So I kind of get that. I don't believe it, but I think it's more valid at this point than later.
And it would almost kind of be a little bit poetic, wherein she's pretending to be Elaine Stone when in reality she really is Littlefinger's bastard.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But you know what? I'm not going to say it because it's upsetting Bina, and we shouldn't have that going on right now.
It's not upsetting me. I mean, I didn't just rage send you all a 10-page document proving everything awesome.
I opened this document, and I'm like, wow, that was quick for like 5 seconds.
No, what that was, I did that when I did the Feast Dance reread, and we did it character by character, so then I went back and did like a Sansa reread, which is when I became the Sansa fan, actually. So, yeah.
Because there was less material to read.
Yeah, exactly. But she's going to kick ass.
The thing that gives credence to it for me is just, it's that Stark warg connection with the wolves and stuff, like that's in their blood. And I think there's like things in I could be making this up, but like in the world book that kind of attests to that, like going down their line. And she doesn't have, we don't really know about Robb because we don't get the POV from him. There's a difference between having a trained wolf and having that soul-to-soul connection with the wolf.
But her wolf dies.
Yeah,
so
Yeah, you can blame her for that.
But by the time, because by the time, the others start having their wolf dreams, this, Lady dies before, she can really connect with Sansa. Because it's only really after that Arya actually starts having her wolf dreams.
But given everything we know about Sansa, do you really think she would anyway? Because she's
definitely,
self-centered person, like her mom.
Because actually she dreams of Winterfell. I mean, not sure about the wolves, but by the time you get into sort of Storm of Swords, I believe that in Clash of Kings she really goes through almost a depression or a nervous breakdown. But by the time she comes through that and becomes the stronger character we know today in Storm of Swords, she does start really she thinks about Winterfell a lot, she thinks about her siblings a lot, she starts having dreams about Winterfell, she starts unconsciously making castles. I think she would have done, honestly. But I know I'm biased, so...
Yeah, she starts out by embracing her matrilineal heritage because that's what she thinks will serve her best, being a lady of the court and possibly queen and whatnot. Those are what she identifies most with. But I don't think she's not a Stark for that. She's just she hasn't had any pride about it or anything like that, and really started to identify with those things and see how those are good. She hasn't lived through a winter or anything like that, really, that she can remember. So
I think it's also just realistic. I mean, not everyone in the family grows up to be the same character, and I think actually Robb is less Stark. He's more a sort of Stark-Tully blend, and then you've got Arya, who's very Stark. So I think that's right? In a big family, you're going to have people who favour either side more in their personality and looks. So that's okay, I think.
Wait a minute, why isn't Robb a Stark?
I think he acts more Tully-ish than Stark.
He's a ginger.
No, it's just some of the way he always strikes me as just a bit less, I don't know. Partly maybe just because he makes bad decisions I don't approve of.
Yeah, that's how we at.
We'll deal with that when we get to Storm of Swords. Anyways. Anything more on this chapter?
Got nothing.
Is this the one where Tyrion poisons Cersei, or is that next one?
No, it's next one.
He gets it in this chapter.
He nicks it.
What does he get? He gets a diarrhea medicine or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. Okay, well, if no one's got anything left to say on Tyrion 4, then we move on to... Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I did have one. I dropped my phone, and it's a big mess. I was trying to unmute. When Tyrion looks over the poisons, he mentions a few, like Tears Elise, whatever, and some others. Do you think when George was writing this, he had a notion in his mind of maybe the poison that ends up killing Joff coming from this place, and
Chekhov's poison?
Well,
Tyrion might have seen it on that shelf or something?
I think you get it in the prologue when Master Crescent gets choked out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the Strangler, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a powder.
I hadn't thought of that.
The wine.
I think it's maybe just showing how they're these doddering old men who have these terrible poisons and potions just sitting there that anyone can take really easily. Just look over there and swipe.
Yeah, they're doctors without a Hippocratic oath.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just making us aware that this is a dangerous world. And, we're going to see poisoning attempts on Oberyn, on lots of people, right? On Dany at some point. So I think it's just setting up, not necessarily Chekhov's gun, literally this basilisk poison is going to be used on that person, but just in general, be aware that this is a very dangerous world and poison is readily to hand, maybe.
In Feast, I can't remember if Tyrion ever reflects on,
Well, there's no Tyrion chapter in Feast.
Oh, sorry, in Dance. If he reflects on Storm of Swords after he's in prison for Joffrey's murder, if he ever kind of puts it together. Well, he's been in Pycelle's chamber and he's seen that poison in there. Who else has been in that chamber and seen it? Littlefinger, Varys, Cersei, probably.
Although there's probably dodgy shops in King's Landing where you can buy this stuff anyway under the counter, right? I mean, I don't think this is the only place you can get hold of these things. Or maybe they are, I don't know. Maybe they are more rare than I'm thinking. I don't know.
Well, I know some of them are quite expensive, so, it's not like you're going to be able to find that flea bottom, but...
Yeah. High-class poisons.
But apparently, like, if you're a maester, you can make him. So, like, the Tyrell
Yeah.
maester probably made the thing for the hairnet.
Yeah. So technically speaking, every major house who has an in-house maester can have this suite of deadly poisons at their fingertips. Awesome.
Presumably.
And also, this is very
Yeah.
realistic. Like, if you think that George is kind of referring to medieval times, and I think we've done a podcast on Red Margot, but I mean, like, the concept of poisoning royals and plots using poisoning is very common at this time, I think. So it's all good.
Well,
It is
in the
hard
books,
to
don't
say.
they call it the weapon of women and eunuchs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charming. I always use poisons
Yeah.
when I kill people. I don't know about you guys.
You mean you don't use your dick? What?
In all my extrajudicial
Jesus.
killings.
There is
I-
like a bonus part in like the Blu-ray of like one of the seasons of Game of Thrones where it's the guy who plays Oberyn talking about it, and he's like, they say it's the weapon of women, but I find that kind of insulting. Men find it very useful when disposing of unwanted lovers.
That guy rocks in so many ways.
I was hoping you were going to do the accent.
I do not. I can't. Nah, I can't do Oberyn. Sorry, I don't do Dornish.
My name
Sorry.
is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father.
I could do. That sounded more Russian, Bina.
I know. I can't do the Inigo Montoya accent. Okie dokie. So, on to... After Tyrion 4, we jump forward 2 chapters and 2 days to Tyrion 5, which is on March 28th, 299. And note that it took Cleos Frey 5 weeks to get from Robb to Tyrion, because he doesn't have the little finger teleporter. Okay, I think this is our Alexi with his chapter reread.
Okay, so the chapter starts with Tyrion bundling himself up in fur to go deep into the earth with the freaky alchemist Helene. I don't know how to say Halyan or whatever. And he's there to talk about the substance, which is wildfire. He learns that they have 7,840 jars and that his sister wants 10,000 in case Stannis or Renly come to siege the city. We also learn that the Alchemist Guild is gone down in recent years as the Masters have replaced them as the premier academic organization. We also learn King Aerys had plans to burn down King's Landing with wildfire, putting a cache under the Great Sept of Baelor, which was removed, and possibly more under other parts of the city, maybe for later books. We'll find out what happens. Tyrion also asked for some pots, which is kind of weird, but you find out later. And then we also learn that Joffrey has been shooting the starving city folk that have been asking for food outside the Great Sept, which is great considering about the riots later. For the riots later, certainly makes sense. Cersei summons him, but he goes instead to meet Sir Jacqueline first to make Cersei stupid and angry, and he meets his Frey cousin who relays Robb's terms, which he will not meet, but instead he wants his cousin the Frey, to send back a counteroffer, all the while Robb loses his strength and Tyrion cousin Sir Stanford builds a host on Casterly Rock. He then meets with Sir Jacqueline and tells him to train the city guard with the pots, and then put oil in them to train them so they will not drop the wildfire and burn down the city. Then he goes back to the Great Sept of Baelor, but on the way he sees a prophet in the streets railing against the royal family, and we get the famous line in reference to him that he is a twisted little monkey demon. Finally, he gets back to the Red Keep, where Cersei is in his chambers, and he is not happy about that, but she is also not a happy camper and slaps Tyrion for his jests of her incest, and insinuating her incest, and then, surprisingly, she bursts into tears at the thought of Myrcella going to Dorne. She says she wishes she was a man, and generally has a small emotional breakdown, which has, like, we think probably, now we know is probably something to do with Maggie the Frog, and we'll learn more about in A Feast for Crows. Tyrion thinks Myrcella will be fine, though, and that they should send Aerys Oakhart with her, and then finally, the chapter ends with Tyrion happy knowing that Pycelle is Cersei's lackey at heart, so that he can take care of him later.
Nice.
Would have loved to get a POV of Cersei in this exchange. She's like on an emotional roller coaster.
No, what I want is the POV of her when she's poisoned and she has the shits, because I bet she's just a nightmare as when she's sick, just screaming at people and everything. It's just horrible. So, yeah.
She's a nightmare anyway, huh?
Imagine how angry she is pregnant.
When he passes the crazy guy yelling outside the Sept of Baelor, one of the things that really caught me was he yells out, "Bathe in the wine of righteousness, or you shall be bathed in fire." And that kind of, it just kind of symbolizes what might be coming with the wildfire plot in King's Landing, or Dany showing up.
Or him being a Targ.
Who, Tyrion?
Well, yeah.
Or not.
Well, I don't know. I mean, like the main thing, like with Tyrion being a Targ, is like how his eyes are mismatched and whatnot, and that's a common trait, with Targs. But I mean, Tywin had really unsettling eyes too, and so I think he's able to unsettle people because he has Tywin's eyes, not because they're mismatched. Even though he thinks that's what does it.
Well, timeline-wise, doesn't it only make sense for Jaime and Cersei to be... I mean, if it obviously crackpot, but yeah, for them to be Targs.
Yeah, and Cersei's certainly getting towards craziness levels that would be Targish, put it that way. But I don't think they're Targs.
I think when you look back at the timeline, about 9 months before Tyrion's born, Tywin's not in King's Landing, and Aerys II made no secret of wanting Joanna, and I always just assumed Tywin kind of knew it. You're no son of mine, but because I did truly love Joanna, I'm going to keep you around and do my best not to just strangle you.
Well,
wouldn't it be amazing if we had like a linear timeline spreadsheet carefully worked out where we could go back and check all this stuff?
That would be amazing.
That would be great. I wonder where we would find such a thing.
Well, no, I think what you're referring to is when Joanna brings Jaime and Cersei to King's Landing, and that sort of visit. However, I always interpreted the comments that he makes there when I think he talks about her boobs or something, quite inappropriate, and that was kind of based on what he'd already done, sort of thing, as opposed to I'm gonna take this, because they've known each other for years, the three of them, Tywin, Joanna, and Aerys. So
yeah,
I would have felt it would have happened earlier, and then it's kind of Tywin hates Tyrion so much because he is his, and that's all he's got, and Jaime and Cersei aren't his.
Yeah, because there's the dream that Jaime has where he dreams of his mother, and it's like your father dreamed like you would be a good knight, and then she cries or something, and that's part of the quote unquote evidence that Jaime's not hers, or not Tywin's, I should say. She definitely gave birth to them. She probably.
I had never even heard that they're not Tywin's.
Because there was that's definitely been doing the rounds as a theory, and in fact, I think there's been this whole. I think a podcast of Ice and Fire might have done a whole episode when they did their reread, and they were discussing this about, is that genetically possible? And then there's also people who discuss, could one of the twins be a Targ and one not, and all sorts of crazy discussion.
Yeah, where Cersei's a Targ because she gets all hot and bothered while she lights up the Tower of the Hand later on, and
I'm sure the podcast
and she's
doctor,
quite crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure the podcast doctor Linecon 1 has had to sort of intervene with actual knowledge on this.
No, I remember that episode. I think it is possible for one to be Targaryen and one to be Lannister of the twins.
Yeah.
I knew
With
a set of twins that were conceived a month apart when I was a kid.
What?
Yeah, their mom was pregnant, and then literally they had sex and got pregnant again, and the doctor said they were conceived approximately a month apart, because you can still drop an egg when you're pregnant, and you can have it be fertilized, and so they grew together in the womb, but they were actually two separate pregnancies.
So they weren't actually twins.
So one was a preemie?
Well, yeah, one was a preemie, and it was weird too because the older one, she came out 5 or 10 minutes before. She looks 2-3 years younger than her younger sister, and the doctor kind of said, it was the way they were stacked in there. The younger one came out first.
What?
That
but
is
she like is the
insane.
younger one. It was the
That is
craziest thing.
crazy.
Because I knew him for like a couple years and just thought they were like we did theater together as kids, and I thought they were actually like a year or two apart. And
Wait a
then
minute, same father?
same father, yeah. And then there's another set of twins in their family, and then they both have twins now, like twins run in their family, but they weren't conceived together. It was crazy.
Bonkers.
But it is possible.
Yeah, so you could have Cersei being a Targ and Jaime being a Lannister.
Yeah. I don't know if George knows that.
I think we've firmly established that George's knowledge of genetics is sketchy as best.
Yeah, Martin genetics.
But
and physics.
he may
and
have hit
everything.
upon something. He may have like done something kooky that actually turns out to be possible in reality without knowing it. I think is the generous interpretation of what might be going on.
Yes,
Or maybe he's
haphazard.
listening now, and we planted the seed to be sown.
That would be
Just kidding.
mind blowing.
It would be awesome.
I wonder how
no,
because he's met the podcast of Ice and Fire people. Do you think he's ever actually listened to an episode of a podcast of Ice and Fire?
Didn't he say he's
No, he's
Only
too
a
busy
couple
working on
snippets.
his book.
Yeah,
That's just
he's like a machine.
Low blow, low blow.
He never gets distracted. Sorry, low blow.
He was super surprised when he found out Mimi was pregnant.
Yeah. The seed is strong. Oh god.
Real quick, going back to the thing with Tyrion being a Targ, though, it's more than just his eyes. It's like the dwarfism with all their, ancestral incest. And then, like, doesn't he have, like, not blonde hair, but it's, like, white, right, in the book?
Yeah, no, I get the theory, and it's obviously entirely possible. It's all crazy.
He also dreams of dragons and fire and stuff.
Yeah.
like that, too.
Right, yeah. Like, he has that pull to all that. Again, it's like the Stark with the wolves thing. It's
I kind of
that
feel like
sort of
Tyrion.
mystical.
Sorry. I agree.
No, go ahead.
I agree, and I think it's like, to me, Tyrion being a Targ is like R plus L equals to J. Like, of course, George could go back on that, having done all the groundwork. But it just sort of
Yeah.
feels like, why would he do that? He's not malicious towards his reader. I mean, yes, he wants to have twists and turns, but I don't believe you lay that much groundwork and then have something even more clever just to satisfy the theorists. And I feel at this point, like, Tyrion being a Targ is almost, I mean, not as confirmed as R plus L equals J, but
Yeah, the dragon has 3 heads.
I kind of feel like it's pretty damn close to being
Yeah.
canon at this point. I would be upset.
like
if it wasn't.
Rhaegar in the House of the Undying, there must be one more, and if we're assuming that Phaegon is a Phaegon and not a real Aegon, who else is the one more if we know Jon?
Unless you go for the Cersei thing. But she doesn't dream of fire. I mean, she's got the craziness of a Targ, but she doesn't have the dreams. She doesn't have the pull to the dragons. She doesn't have the hair color, so I think
Well, does every Targaryen dream of dragons?
the bonkers ones.
Kind of seems so, yeah, from like Sworn Sword.
Right.
But
You know,
why doesn't
good
Jon
point.
dream of it?
Maybe she
It's a
doesn't.
dream
She's just too
exactly.
drunk to actually have him.
R plus P equals
Jon's
D or
got
whatever.
the Stark Wolf thing is taking over the dragon business.
Yeah, in the battle of the animal imprinting, do wolves kind of like over-dominate dragons, or is it just which one you happen to be around more? Because it does feel like a sort of dragon pull should be stronger than a wolf pull, but who knows? Maybe it's partly environmental as well.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is like Tyrion's around the dragon sort of home base down in King's Landing, and Jon's up there. Especially once he gets out beyond the wall.
Although, if you
It
believe
really
my theory,
intensifies.
that there's probably a dragon underneath Winterfell, then I guess Jon.
Boo.
Oh,
No one believes that.
that. I actually like that theory a lot. I don't know
I
how
like that
valid it
theory.
is, but I think it's cool. Yeah.
I like that theory.
I can see it,
I mean, it's
yeah.
not. I mean, it's in the realms of Quentin is alive, but you've got to have a few of these little jokers up your sleeve.
Oh, he is alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Quentin's alive.
Can we just get that recording just real quick? Edit that right in there.
Oh, that's on many podcasts, right? Me doing Quentin's alive in that tone. It's beyond funny at this point. Any more on Tyrion 4? Sorry, Tyrion 5 even.
Paul,
No, that doesn't-
anyone? Sorry, go on.
That's it. No, that does it for me.
Oh.
You get some more phrase and some more like minor people. You get a reference to Thoros of Myr using wildfire to perform his tricks. But he also has real magics, right? So it's not just trickery.
feel like the old bear should have sent someone nicer
Mm.
and maybe.
Well, then
gotten
you
a-
think Alistair Thorne would know the people back then? Like he knew, wasn't there that line that he knew
Oh
the
yeah,
people in
because
King's Landing?
he was in the sack of King's Landing, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was a Targ loyalist.
Yeah.
That's how he ended up on the wall.
That's true.
I mean, I don't like Alistair Thorne, but I do think there's something quite tragic in at the wall. They're so up against it, and they think this rotting hand is going to be the evidence that triggers King's Landing into sending them back with proper resources, and he's just left to literally rot with the rotting hand in the cell, and by the time he's let out, the hand's just disintegrated, and there's something really pitiable in that, I think.
Yeah, but he shouldn't have sent a dick to go, like, make an important parlay. Like, yeah.
But it's not like there's so many noble-born people he can send, right? I mean, he's not awash with people with high credibility.
Send Dolores Ed, send anyone, but not him. You know he's a dick.
Shows up in King's Landing.
Would be the worst decision.
Oh yeah, he's like, the dead are coming back to life, eh? He's Canadian.
Dolores would just kind of just throw like the hand onto the floor and be like, "Watch it scuttle."
Hey.
Might have been more effective.
George just needed a break from him. He's like, you need to take a time out. Go to King's Landing.
Exactly, on any
Make him first ranger. That's a good place to send him.
Yeah, they all die.
Right.
How many people die on the King's Road and fucking Sir Alistair lives there and back?
I know.
Doesn't he take a boat?
I know.
Yeah,
he took a ship,
boat.
right?
He took a boat.
That is the ultimate hack, isn't it? Just take a boat. Alexi, any thoughts on this chapter? You're the one who summarized it. What did we get all your thoughts?
Yeah, I just more of Tyrion, scheming and all the like, and then we have Cersei finally flipping her shit, and kind of you see this is probably the first time she really breaks down, and you kind of see behind her like shield of being cunning, not fake cunning, and kind of her arrogance. She's like actually does fear things a lot.
Yeah, and just the emotional volatility when she's slapping him, I think is, you're right. I think now, because we know her so well, we're very used to that. But at the time reading it, it was quite surprising and shocking to see her really lose it. And that's going to obviously become a huge feature of the novels.
I'm kind of entertained by the idea that she basically intimidated Tyrion's clansmen into letting her into his chambers.
Yeah.
She is queen, right? So she has authority.
Yeah, but like the clansmen aren't exactly like all hail the queen. They're like, oh, fuck goats, get knives, go back.
Fuck
to
goats. Huh?
Fuck goats, no, feed goats.
Feed goats?
Yeah, feed man parts to the goats.
Yeah. I've
Yeah,
talked to
dicks
the
to
wrong
the-
clansman.
Goats love dicks.
Oh, there's the
I think that's
bumper.
the bumper now.
That's the bumper now. You guys have definitely given me plenty of material to work with. Maybe this will be the first episode where I have a different bumper for each bumper kind of thing.
This chapter coupled with the last one is that by the time I got to Clash, I'd kind of already been trained to have no hope and know that everything's going to go to shit eventually. And this one coupled with the last one's like that quintessential example of the sweet, horrible bliss that reading George's work is, because, you're like, yeah, Tyrion's playing the game and he's super badass and he's on a high, but yeah. I have this real, like, strong feeling like, when's that other shoe gonna drop?
Yeah, no good.
It's like you want to root for him and hope, like, yeah, he's getting his footing and he's, making these moves and stuff. And and he's even thrown Cersei off her game. And it's like, but you just know something's gonna come crashing down, and that just feeling it invokes in you when you read, that unsettled feeling is just, it's amazing.
The thing that bothers me with it is I'm like, okay, so he came out with this brilliant scheme to figure out who, his sister's informant is, but then he fails to realize, oh wait, I might piss off the other two schemers in, this game and like make an enemy here.
Yeah, so he's not as clever as all that. But at least he's trying. Like, I mean, what I like about Tyrion at this point is he's genuinely trying to be a good ruler. He's genuinely trying to figure out how the game is played.
Yes.
He's doing his job, which is to govern wisely and intelligently and not naively, or trying to, which is more than any other ruler we've seen so far in this series almost. So, kudos to him for trying, at least.
Miles
He's also-
above Ned.
Yeah. Low
Yeah.
benchmark.
He's also right, though, in dealing with Clea's Frey that, like, Robb will just self-destruct after a while. And by that, I mean Caitlyn will self-destruct. But
Wargasm, back me up.
No,
please
But
defend
from the
that
second-
decision.
yeah, okay. From the second that Robb is crowned, like Catelyn's basically she's relegated to second chair. She can only advise at that point. Once he's king, like she's like, fuck, because now I have a teenager at the helm of this. Where she actually would have been able to make decisions when he wasn't crowned. I don't know.
I don't know. I
You
mean,
like
I was
Lucy
just
the
listening to
Kingslayer?
this. I was just listening to the Sopranos Voc, and I think that the end of Godfather, not Sopranos, the Godfather 1 Voc, and at the end of that first movie, there's the final scene is Michael Corleone's in a darkened room, and he's got his little minions around him, and they're kissing his hand and calling him Godfather, and one of them just comes and closes the door and leaves his wife outside. And I sort of
You know what they're
feel
not
that
calling him?
what?
Corleone.
Yeah.
It's Corleone. Sorry. Go on.
Like, I think Drew's absolutely right. Once he's king, she's inevitably going to have less influence. Doesn't mean the decisions she makes are always amazing, but,
So you're saying
actually-
that book 1 is like the best cat that we get? Because that's the book where I hate her the most, because she gets Tyrion and makes bad decision after bad decision.
No. She doesn't make bad decision after bad decision. And I think, when she goes to treat with Renly, like we see, Kat is the far better diplomat than many others advising Robb. She's the one who tells him not
the
to send
better
Theon
diplomat
to Balon. She
That's Umber?
by the time
like,
she gets to
at Robb
releasing
Arc.
Jaime, she's absolutely desperate. I mean, she goes through a very compressed arc.
Yeah, and Kat is okay. Like when you go through reading her chapters, like she is able to size up every single person that she comes across, and usually predict what they're going to say before they even say it. She's, I love reading her chapters that way. Her tragedy is that she doesn't get to wield that power ever effectively, or I don't know. It's just
Yeah, I agree. And I think in a sense, like Kat and Cersei are two sides of the same coin. They're both frustrated by the fact that they don't have formal power and they have to use what power they have through influence. And I think it's very constraining. But listeners, stay tuned to episode 22 when we get a lot of Kat with Renly. I think that's when that discussion's really going to kick off. And both Wargasm and I are going to be on that podcast, I think. I hope.
Yeah, I'm team Hot Mom all the way.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
her and Cersei really are good contrasts of each other. Like, they share so many similarities, being women in this misogynistic world, and then having to face sort of similar circumstances where their children are concerned, and then watching them make either varied or similar choices based on whatever's happening.
Yeah, and actually,
It's probably the only thing I enjoy about reading Kat.
I could imagine doing a really interesting sort of Kat Cersei, just concentrating on those two characters and doing a sort of very intense reread. I think it'd be throw up some quite interesting parallels and contrasts.
That is literally my nightmare.
I think my nightmare is like a Bran Tyrion a Bran Dany combo. Ugh.
Oof, that would be brutal too.
A Danny
Brutal.
John combo.
Yeah, which is effectively dance. Okay, well, I think let's bring the formal proceedings to a close. I would like to thank all my fellow hosts, so Hannah, Jeff, Matt, Alexi, Drew, Noah, and Small Paul.
Was that in order of awesomeness?
That was in order of how you appear on my
No.
Skype screen. And I would like to say that obviously these episodes are published on iTunes and on YouTube. If you want to get involved in the discussion, then we are to be found at the forums of A Podcast of Ice and Fire. So if you Google APOIAF, you will find us. You can also find us on Twitter, Tumblr, all sorts of other places, just by Googling
Facebook.
VOK Podcast, also on Facebook.
WordPress, Grindr.
WordPress, Grindr, Tinder, all sorts of other dating apps. And what else did I want to say? Oh yes, does anyone have any future podcasts they want to pimp out while they're on?
I'd
Forthcoming
just
stuff?
like to give a shout out to the Witcher 3 podcast, which is going to be hosted by, I think, Katie, who's Lady Griffin on the forums. And afterwards, I'm going to be doing a podcast on the Witcher books.
Nice. Drew, anything coming up for you?
Tonight we're going to be recording the Gays Night Out, and so we're going to cover all things gay in the Song of Ice and Fire world, and then Battlestar's coming back, and we got the Labyrinth. I'm going to watch that for the first time with you, Bina.
Oh, Champ Magic, yes.
Jesus.
Varley, you got anything coming up?
I think I might drop in on Gays Night Out, and I think we're doing the multiple other rereads. I think we're trying to do a Hobbit reread, Harry Potter reread, and are we taking suggestions for sicko serial killers?
We are taking suggestions for sicko serial
Zodiac.
killers.
Have you done it?
No, and I think, I think there was an expression of sensitivity from FT Ward/Thomas, which was, if we do things that are more recent, then there's more of a chance of victims or families of victims still being alive, which I know the chances of them listening is minimal, and we always try and be very respectful when we discuss this stuff, but, there's enough people we can do that are in, 100 years ago that we don't have to worry about that with.
Yeah, because we're discussing the Zodiac killer, but there's literally, living victims.
Yeah.
No, the couple people that actually escaped are still alive. So
yeah, but it's a super fascinating. I'd love to do it, but I just think there's other stuff we can get to first.
It just means, Matt, that if you're gonna actually kill Dan and Dave, you have a lot more people to kill.
Anyone else got anything else? Alexi, anyone? Hannah, have you signed up for anything else that's coming up that we haven't mentioned?
Yeah, the only one I have coming up to record is the next episode of this linear reread, but we did the Wolfcast kind of season 6 recap, and we did it like a trivia game.
Nice.
And I'm sure it will be lost in editing for quite some time, and God bless Glenn for doing it. But when it comes out, it should be extraordinarily fun. It was great.
Cool. We look forward to that. And I have to say, I've just listened to the Pottercast and the Godfather Vox. I can highly recommend those. They're good times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, both of them have me on it.
Just before we go, I made some calculations of when, the pace of these linear rereads. And if we take a 3-month break per season, we do about 11 chapters per month. So if we include that break, by the time we have the start of season 7, we'll be 182 chapters in. So we'll be like a third of the way into Storm, or about halfway. And by
That's
the
it?
end, yeah. And then, but we might speed up because there's that. It seemed like they were a bit slower in the beginning. And by the start of season 8, we'll be in Feast Dance, and then we'll finish at about December 2018.
Just in time for wins.
Yep.
Well, we won't need such a long break for season 8 and season 7 because they're going to be shorter.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And I think season 7 is going to be later because they have to wait for winter in their shooting locations as well, apparently.
Yeah,
it can't be sunny.
But yeah, God, that's depressing, Alexi. Cheers. So I'm going to formally close out the show now. Thank you again to all the hosts, especially welcome to Czar Alexi for the first time. It's good podcasting with Shadowbaby as well. Join us next time for episode 20 of a possible 70 in this inexorable reread, and that will be covering Arya 6, Jon 2, Dany 1, Cat 2, and Tyrion 6, if you actually want to read along at home in the linear order, which after all is kind of the point. Okay. Posse out. Bye.